Everyone has 4 skills. Mo Shu at Shun City First High School. In the classroom of Year 3 Class 1, there are still more than 10 days left until the college entrance examination. Everyone must revise their theoretical knowledge, especially those who have yet to awaken their abilities. You must thoroughly research the theories behind your abilities. However, the awakened students must not be careless either. The college entrance examination will really determine a person's fate. A man dressed in black was standing at the podium. He was Gao Quan, the form teacher of Year 3 Class 1. Unlike the other relaxed students, Mo Shu's eyes were filled with seriousness and determination. After all, Mo Shu knew that the college entrance examination might not be that important to those with good family backgrounds. However, to him, this was an opportunity to change his fate, an opportunity that he had no choice but to seize. Gao Quan continued, "We will start self-studying until noon. After lunch, we will train at the training grounds." After Gao Quan finished speaking, he turned and left. Some of the students started chatting when they saw the form teacher leaving. "Hey, have you guys heard? Zhou Chuwu from Class 2 awakened his skills yesterday. It's said that he awakened 2 skills. Really? 2 skills? That's too strong. He's pulling away from us. Do you know what skills he has?" "Of course, he's from a prestigious family. There's no need to talk about his talent. Anyway, are you an idiot? Who wouldn't keep their skills a secret?" "True, true." Mo Shu ignored the students around him. Instead, he began to revise the curriculum from his first year of high school, which included the origins of skills, and the basic analysis of these skills. He flipped to the first page of his notes, which detailed the origins of skills. Skills are a special gift bestowed upon humans by the heavens. A meteor landed on Earth, and the meteor emitted a huge light. Then, invisible radiation swept across the entire world, creating the current world. That meteor was named the Beginning, and it is now being kept by the sea race. On the second page, from then on, humans were bestowed with extraordinary abilities, which are currently known as the 4 skills. Everyone has 4 skills. On the day of their 18th birthday, they will awaken their first skill. After that, they will awaken 1 skill every year. These game-like abilities landed on Earth, and Earth underwent a tremendous change. Mo Shu's birthday was tomorrow, and he had yet to awaken his abilities. If the college entrance examination could change his fate, then awakening would decide his fate. The strength and use of one's skills directly determined the direction of a person's future development. Therefore, when his 18th birthday was approaching, he was filled with anxiety. Unknowingly, the afternoon bell rang. Ring ring ring. "Hey, Mo Shu, stop reading. It's time to eat. Are you really going to start revising your theoretical knowledge from scratch?" The person who spoke was Zheng Yi, Mo Shu's only friend in high school. Mo Shu calmly closed his book and smiled calmly. "Why not?" Zheng Yi was stunned for a moment before saying, "That's up to you. Let's go and eat." Then, the two of them went to the canteen to eat. The moment they sat down, Zheng Yi sneakily whispered into Mo Shu's ear. "Mo Shu, there's a gathering tonight. Come with me." As Mo Shu ate, he glanced at Zheng Yi and shook his head. "No, I have to train at the training grounds tonight." Zheng Yi pursed his lips and said, "How boring. Mu Qingyi will be attending this gathering as well. Don't say that I won't help you." Mu Qingyi was the class monitor. With Mo Shu, they were the 2 most hard-working people in the entire class. The 2 of them were usually the last to leave the school, so they usually had some interactions. When Zheng Yi saw that Mo Shu seemed to be very close to Mu Qingyi, he decided to play the role of a matchmaker. "I won't go no matter who goes. You're practically a block of wood." At the training grounds of Shun City First High School. "Ah, so handsome. Mo Shu has broken the speed record again." That's right, that's right. He finished this 100-meter race in 7.65 seconds. "Oh my god, could this be a school record?" "The 2 of you, stop being love-struck. Can't you see Mo Shu's face? Don't even think about it." A group of girls were discussing Mo Shu. The college entrance examination was divided into 3 categories. The first was a theory test, the second was a physical test, and the third was a skill test. There was no need to explain the theory test. It would test the knowledge they had learned from their textbooks. The physical test included a strength test, a speed test, and a combat test. Meanwhile, The skill test involved using a computer-simulated enemy to test the usage and strength of one's skills. There was no need for Mo Shu to worry about the first two categories. After all, he was first in school for the theory component, while the results of his physical test were even better. There was a saying in Shun City First High School. The results of the physical test could be divided into 3 grades. The top grade was Mo Shu, the second grade was empty, while the rest of the school was in the 3rd grade. The only thing Mo Shu was worried about was the skill test. Time was too tight, and there were only 10 days left until the college entrance examination. There would be very little time to figure out his own skills. I ran 100 meters in 7.65 seconds, and my fist power is 230.4 kilograms. I have to work harder. Since I don't know my skills, I have to improve my results in the 2 other tests as much as possible. Then, an abrupt and arrogant voice broke the silence. Mo Shu, do you dare to compete with me? The newcomer was called Wang Shenhu. He was in the same class as Mo Shu, and his results had always been suppressed by Mo Shu and Mu Qingyi. It could be said that he was firmly in 3rd place. As he had been below Mo Shu all year round, he was very unhappy. He couldn't stand how arrogant Mo Shu had always been. Coincidentally, there were many people paying attention to Mo Shu today, so he wanted to use this opportunity to embarrass Mo Shu. Compete in what? Compete in actual combat, of course. The college entrance examination is about actual combat. It's not easy to find an opponent to train with, right? Mo Shu thought for a moment. Indeed, he did not have much combat experience. Thus, he agreed without any hesitation. The 2 of them arrived at a square-shaped field with a length and width of 25 meters. The official way to determine the winner was to either leave the boundaries of the field or fall to the ground. Mo Shu's physique was terrifying, and no one had dared to challenge him throughout his 3 years of high school. Hence, this match had attracted a large number of onlookers. At this moment, Zheng Yi squeezed into the crowd. When he saw someone challenging Mo Shu, his interest was piqued. He shouted, Wang Shenhu, are you itching for a beating? Zheng Yi wasn't being arrogant by saying that. In a competition where skills weren't used, Mo Shu was invincible. Shall we begin? Mo Shu said as he stretched out a hand and made an inviting gesture. Wang Shenhu did not answer. Instead, he took a big stride forward and accelerated towards Mo Shu. Zheng Yi shouted despicably from among the audience. The 2 of them were not far from each other to begin with. Thus, Wang Shenhu's sudden attack had caught Mo Shu off guard. However, Mo Shu's expression was calm without a trace of panic. He exerted strength in his legs and advanced instead of retreating. Then, he arrived at Wang Shenhu's right in a flash and punched him in the stomach. Ah! Wang Shenhu fell to the ground in pain. After a while, seeing that Mo Shu did not continue attacking, he slowly stood up. The audience started discussing. Most people felt that the gap between the 2 was too great and that Wang Shenhu would definitely lose. Wang Shenhu lowered his head and seemed to be thinking about something. Then, he launched another attack. This time, Wang Shenhu dodged Mo Shu's kick. Wang Shenhu, who had dodged the attack, did not continue attacking. Instead, he grabbed Mo Shu's leg. Mo Shu would not let go of this opportunity and punched Wang Shenhu's chest. Just when everyone thought that the match had ended, Wang Xuanyu flashed a sinister smile. First skill, Burst Sting. As everyone watched on in disbelief, spikes suddenly grew out of Wang Shenhu's body. At this moment, it was impossible for Mo Zusha to retract his fist. He could only make a clawing gesture with his hands to minimize the damage. His hand firmly grabbed onto the spikes on Wang Xuanyu's body. Then, Mo Shu borrowed the force and pulled out his left leg to retreat. Although Mo Shu was prepared, he was still heavily injured. His left leg and right hand had been pierced by the spikes. Zheng Yi rushed into the arena and said angrily to Wang Shenhu, Wang Shenhu, you actually used your skill. How shameless. I'll let you have a taste of suffering today. Wang Shenhu had actually used a skill. Usually, both parties would tacitly agree not to use a skill in a competition. If they wanted to use a skill, they had to say so in advance. Everyone knew that Mo Shu had not awakened a single skill, so this was a deliberate trap by Wang Shenhu. The surrounding people also began to talk about how shameless Wang Shenhu was. However, no one noticed that Mo Shu was looking at his wound with excitement in his eyes. Zheng Yi was about to charge forward when Mo Shu grabbed him and shook his head, indicating for him not to. Zheng Yi whispered, "Mo Shu, how can you tolerate this? I'll take responsibility if anything happens." Mo Shu pulled Zheng Yi behind him and walked to Wang Shenhu step by step. He extended a hand and said, "Let's continue. How about it?" "Ah!" The entire audience cried out in surprise. He was already in this state, yet he still wanted to continue? Wang Shenhu was stunned and did not speak. "Right, you can use your skills." "Ah!" Everyone was shocked. No one could understand what Mo Shu was trying to do. The other party was obviously trying to make Mo Shu look bad. Thus, Mo Shu could totally let everyone teach Wang Shenhu a lesson. Although Mo Shu didn't have many good friends, he was quite a good person. In addition, he was strong and had some prestige in the class. As long as he spoke, the others would be willing to help. However, Mo Shu wanted to continue fighting with Wang Shenhu. This not only meant that he had forgiven Wang Shenhu, but that he also wanted to make things difficult for him. In everyone's opinion, it was impossible for Mo Shu to defeat Wang Shenhu without any skills. Wang Shenhu was overjoyed when he realized what was going on. He did not expect Mo Shu to be so stupid. Initially, he could not stand his bragging and wanted him to suffer. However, if the competition were to continue, Mo Shu would not only suffer. "All right, since you've invited me so sincerely, I'll accept it." Mo Shu did not react after hearing this. Instead, he nodded seriously. Meanwhile, Zheng Yi was furious. Wang Shenhu was so shameless that he wanted to beat him up. "Are you FC King shameless? I'm going to teach you a lesson today. I'm going to make you cry." Mo Shu pulled Zheng Yi back and said in a low voice, "Leave it to me. There are many ways to teach someone a lesson. Do you think I'm someone who will swallow my pride?" Upon hearing Mo Shu's words, Zheng Yi calmed down and walked out of the venue. He wanted to see what Mo Shu was up to. At most, he would help when Mo Shu was no match for Wang Shenhu. Then, Mo Shu turned around and said to Wang Shenhu, "Let's begin." Wang Shenhu sat on the ground and said, "Wait a moment. I've used a lot of energy in the competition just now. Let's rest for a while before we begin." The onlookers were dumbfounded. Did he say that he used a lot of energy just now? They had only exchanged 3 moves. Wang Shenhu had only suffered 1 punch while Mo Shu was still bleeding. However, Mo Shu did not mind. He sat on the ground and looked meaningfully at Wang Shenhu. "All right." Mo Shu kept staring at Wang Shenhu, not knowing what to think. This was until Wang Shenhu said that he was done resting and the competition resumed. Wang Shenhu stood up arrogantly and said, "Come on, let's begin." This time, Mo Shu did not act as politely as before. Instead, he immediately attacked after Wang Shenhu finished speaking. The strength that erupted from his legs was extremely shocking. He instantly threw a punch at Wang Shenhu's face. Wang Shenhu knew how powerful Mo Shu was, so he did not dare to be negligent and protected his head with his arms. First skill, Burst Sting. Wang Shenhu's entire body was covered in spikes once again. However, Mo Shu was clearly well prepared this time. He transformed his fist into a knife hand strike and slashed at the gap between the 2 spikes on Wang Shenhu's arm. Pa! After Mo Shu's attack succeeded, he immediately retreated. Wang Shenhu lowered his arms and said with a grin, "Haha, do you think you found my weakness?" Mo Shu acted as if he did not hear Wang Shenhu's words and muttered to himself, "So that's how it is." "Mo Shu, what did you say?" "Nothing." Again. Before he could finish his sentence, Mo Shu attacked again. His hand was still prepared for a knife hand strike, but he no longer delivered a chop. Instead, he used his fingertips to attack the gaps in Wang Shenhu's spikes. This way, he could ensure that he was not injured. Wang Shenhu was not someone to be trifled with. After all, he was not weak to begin with. Furthermore, with the augmentation of his skill, although he did not injure Mo Shu, he had the upper hand after a few moves. Meanwhile, Mo Shu relied on his nimble movements to fight and retreat. In an instant, the 2 of them were locked in battle. Outside of the field, Zheng Yi frowned. Mo Shu's seemingly disorganized moves had a pattern to them that he was very familiar with. At this moment, a voice from behind reminded Zheng Yi, Do you think Mo Shu is using Bagwajong? Zheng Yi slapped his thigh. That was right. Wasn't Mo Shu using Bagwajong, which was taught in the basic martial arts class in year 1? Mo Shu turned Bagwajong into a knife hand strike and used his fingertips to attack. He was extremely strong and his legs were steady like in Bagwajong. Furthermore, his movements were unpredictable. Wasn't this the same as Bagwajong? It was as if the question in Zheng Yi's heart had been answered. This sentence also solved the doubts of all the bystanders. For a moment, there was silence. Oh my God, how solid were Mo Shu's fundamentals? To think that a basic martial arts technique that everyone despised could be used to such an extent. At this moment, the most depressed person was Wang Shenhu. He no longer had the confidence he had at the beginning of the competition. Instead, his brows were tightly furrowed and his expression was solemn. He had thought that he could easily defeat Mo Shu and humiliate him, but he hadn't expected that he would only be able to fight to a draw even after using a skill. Suddenly, Wang Shenhu's spikes disappeared. Then, Mo Shu's right hand transformed into a fist and punched at Wang Shenhu's face. I admit defeat. Mo Shu's fist stopped 5 centimeters away from Wang Shenhu, who let out a long sigh. Phew. I admit defeat this time. I'll consult you again next time. With that said, he turned to leave. At this moment, Zheng Yi ran over and said, Mo Shu, are you letting him go just like that? When he plotted against you, if it weren't for your quick reflexes, you might not have just suffered such serious injuries. It might even affect your college entrance examination. If you're afraid that it will affect you, I'll go and deal with him. He has already received his due punishment. Zheng Yi frowned and asked, what punishment? Wang Shenhu, who was walking away, walked back when he heard this. Then, he regained his initial arrogance and said, tell me, how did you punish me? Mo Shu smiled and remained calm. He ignored Wang Shenhu's mockery. Instead, Mo Shu walked step by step to Wang Shenhu's side and gently patted his shoulder. Wang Shenhu slapped Mo Shu's hand away and said, stop trying to mystify things. Speak, what the hell are you doing? Mo Shu's voice was not too loud or too soft. He used a volume that was just enough for the surrounding crowd to hear him. He said, Wang Shenhu, first skill. Burst Sting. A release-type skill. His entire body will be covered in spikes. Furthermore, it increases his speed, strength, and defense by about 20%. Duration: 45 seconds. Cooldown: 30 minutes. Wang Shenhu looked at Mo Shu in disbelief. Everything Mo Shu said was right. How was this possible? The surrounding people were in an uproar. Such a detailed introduction of Wang Shenhu's skill would definitely affect his future development. Everyone only had 4 skills and everyone would try their best to hide their skills. This was because if 2 people were to fight, and one didn't know their opponent's skill but the opponent knew their skill, their opponent would come up with a strategy based on the characteristics of their skill. Unless one absolutely suppressed their opponent in terms of strength, it was almost impossible to defeat their opponent. This was a very detailed introduction that even included the cooldown time. This was a heavy blow to Wang Shenhu. No school would take a fancy to a person who had the details of their skill fully exposed just after they had awakened their skill. At this moment, Wang Shenhu's entire body was trembling as he said, even if you can estimate that the skill will improve my attributes, then, how do you know the cooldown time and duration of my skill? You're talking nonsense, right? You're talking nonsense? Mo Shu replied with interest. After the first round ended, the spikes on your body did not disappear. This means that your skill cannot be automatically deactivated. Therefore, during the second round, the period of time between when you release your skill to the end of your skill will be the duration of your skill. What about the cooldown time? Didn't you say that you wanted to rest for a while? I've been watching you. With your desire to fight immediately back then, the time between when the spikes on your body retracted to the time you said you could continue fighting is the cooldown time. After hearing Mo Shu's analysis, Wang Shenhu could not stay any longer and left in a hurry. Mo Shu had been ambushed and calmly proposed to continue the competition. Then, he had used the basic Bagwajong techniques to fight Wang Shenhu to a standstill. Finally, he had used such meticulous calculations to predict Wang Shenhu's skill. However, Mo Shu's plan to train at the training grounds after school was disrupted. Now that he was injured, he could only go home and rest. This was also one of the reasons why Mo Shu was angry. Another reason was that, as Zheng Yi had said, Wang Shenhu wanted to affect his college entrance examination. When he got home, there were dishes on the dining table and a piece of paper under the plates. "I'm working the night shift today. Eat well and don't miss me." Mo Shu's mother's name was Li Yuan. She worked at a small factory. It was not easy for the mother and son to live in this chaotic world. In order to earn more money, her mother often worked overtime at night. Thus, Mo Shu had not seen her for a few days. Mo Shu had witnessed the family situation and his mother's hard work. This was also the reason why he had been working so hard to learn and train. After dinner, he lay on the bed and quietly waited for the clock to strike midnight. As long as the clock struck midnight, Mo Shu would awaken one of his skills. Thus, he was extremely nervous. What exactly will my first skill be? The books say that when it's my birthday, 3 skills will appear in my mind. I can choose one of them as my skill. What will mine be? Perhaps it was because he was too tired from the battle, or perhaps it was because he was too nervous. Mo Shu fell asleep. When it was almost midnight, Li Yuan returned home. After all, it was her son's birthday at midnight. At the same time, her son was going to awaken his skills. No matter what, she had to come back to accompany her son. Seeing that Mo Shu was already asleep, she sat by the bed to accompany him. Li Yuan looked at Mo Shu apologetically. She had seen Mo Shu's hard work all these years. Although she was earning money to support her family, Li Yuan knew that the amount of hard work that Mo Shu had put in was no less than hers. Mo Shu wanted to change his fate and his mother's fate. At midnight, a huge wave of energy crashed into Mo Shu's mind, causing him to wake up with a start. After that, his gaze became dull. During an awakening, the brain would be in a blank state and would not sense anything from the outside world. Li Yuan became nervous when she saw this. She knew that the awakening had begun. Meanwhile, Mo Shu nervously looked at the skill pattern in his mind that was floating over from afar. As the pattern got closer, Mo Shu began to realize that something was wrong. Why was there only one pattern? Could it be that he couldn't choose? The pattern became clear, and Mo Shu focused his gaze. Passive skill. Flip. What is a passive skill? A passive skill. What was that? It hadn't been recorded in the books throughout his 3 years of high school. No one had mentioned it. When the skill pattern appeared, Mo Shu was even more confused. There was only one pattern with the word, flip, written on it. Even the skill introduction was nowhere to be found. The books clearly stated that when a person awakened their skills, they would be in a special state. In the outside world, a person would be in a blank state, but in reality, their brain would be operating rapidly, and they would be choosing their skills. The 3 subsequent awakenings would be the same. 3 skill patterns would appear in one's mind, and the names and introduction of the skills would be displayed. However, only one pattern appeared in Mo Shu's mind. There was no choice to make, and there was no introduction. This meant that Mo Shu didn't know what this skill was used for. Even in such a situation, Mo Shu was still very calm. There was no time limit to choosing a skill during an awakening, so Mo Shao wanted to wait and see if things would take a turn for the better. Mo Shu didn't know how long he had been waiting in this awakening state, where he had no sense of the flow of time. Everything in front of him remained the same. Meanwhile, the flip skill was looking at him coldly. I don't know how much time has passed in the outside world. I can't drag this on any longer. If my skill is going to be flip, then so be it. Mo Shu was helpless and could only force himself to choose this skill. When he came into contact with the skill pattern, the skill transformed into a golden light and surged into his mind. Just as Mo Shuan wanted to check this skill, he realized that he could not control his body. In other words, he had yet to escape from this state of awakening. What was going on? Amidst his confusion, another light appeared before his eyes. As the light approached him, 3 patterns appeared. Was the choice just now fake? Had the awakening just begun? When the 3 skill patterns came to a stop, Mo Shu carefully examined them. Skill. Infinite exploding flames. Effect. Summons explosive flames. Cooldown. 5 minutes. Skill. God's Eye. Effect. Checks the approximate skill effect, as well as the detailed cooldown and duration of the target's skills. It can only be used on one target. Cooldown. 1 hour. Skill. Descent of the Martial God. Effect. Increases all attributes, speed, strength, endurance, etc., by 100%. Duration. 3 minutes. Cooldown. 3 hours. Even when an accident happened, he didn't panic. However, after seeing these 3 skills, Mo Shu couldn't remain calm anymore. Aren't these skills too powerful? After exclaiming in surprise, Mo Shu fell into deep thought. These 3 skills were too powerful. Each had their own advantages. Infinite Bursting Flames had a short cooldown time. Although the effect of the skill did not specify how powerful it was, it should not be too bad. Generally, such explosive skills that could cover a range would have a long cooldown time. Having a short cooldown meant that he could use multiple deadly skills in a battle. Meanwhile, Descent of the Martial God was easier to understand. It was used to increase one's attributes. The 100% increase in all of his attributes was very scary. Usually, buff-type skills that had just been awakened would only improve one attribute, such as speed. Furthermore, the increase in attributes would not be that large. As for God's Eye, it was the skill that shocked Mo Shu the most. He had never heard of a skill that could directly check the skills of others. Just like Wang Hu's skill, maintaining the secrecy of one's skills was very important. If he knew his opponent's skills before the battle, he would have a higher chance of winning. After hesitating for a while, Mo Shu prepared to choose between God's Eye and Descent of the Martial God. God's Eye was simply cheating. Mo Shu didn't want to let go of this skill. On the other hand, Descent of the Martial God could increase his strength in a short period of time. Mo Shu had been studying combat since he was young. Thus, this skill was very suitable for him. One of the skills provided him with special privileges, but it would be much help to him in the college entrance examination. Meanwhile, the other skill could help him achieve good results in the college entrance examination. This was a question of whether to choose a skill that would help him in the present or the future. After hesitating for a while, Mo Shu still decided to choose Descent of the Martial God. It would be more helpful. After his consciousness touched the skill that contained Descent of the Martial God also turned into golden light and entered his mind. After making his choice, the patterns of the other 2 skills didn't disappear. Mo Shu furrowed his eyebrows. What was going on? Why were there so many strange things happening when he awakened his skills? Could it be that there was something wrong with the skills and he couldn't choose Descent of the Martial God? Mo Shu shook his head and used his consciousness to touch God's Eye. This time, before the golden light dissipated, everything before Mo Shu turned white. Then, he opened his eyes. What had happened? This awakening felt like a dream. Mo Shu suddenly sat up and concentrated. Then, 2 images appeared in his mind. One of them was Flip, while the other was God's Eye. What's going on? Why'd I have 2 skills? Did I also awaken 2 skills at once? No, according to the records, if there are multiple skills during the first awakening, the entire awakening process will be split into 2 parts. After choosing the first skill, I will wake up. Then, I will enter the state of awakening again within a day. Little Shu, are you awake? A voice interrupted Mo Shu's thoughts. He looked up and saw that it was his mother. Mo Shu did not wake up the entire night, and Li Yuan stayed by his side the entire night. Have you awakened your skills? Yes. Are the skills okay? They're not bad. That's good. Get up and eat. I'll make you a bowl of longevity noodles. His mother didn't ask any more questions. Meanwhile, Mo Shu didn't say anything because he knew his mother believed he could handle everything. After briefly tidying up, Mo Shu came to the dining table and looked at the simple bowl of longevity noodles, feeling a little touched. All these years, his mother had been supporting this family alone, so it was very difficult to earn money. Once he went to university, he would get a scholarship and do some part-time jobs to earn money. Mom, thank you. Li Yuan smiled and said, Rascal, why are you being so polite with your mother? Mo Shu scratched his head and said, Thank you very much. Not long after his meal, Mo Shu left. Although he was looking forward to testing his skills, he still had to go to school today. Thus, he couldn't find a quiet place to study his skills. When Mo Shu reached the school gate, he bumped into Zheng Yi. Mo Shu was a little puzzled. This fellow was always the last to arrive. Why was he here so early today? Morning, Zheng Yi. Did the sun rise from the west today? You're early. Zheng Yi said unhappily, you're so heartless. I know that it's your birthday and day of awakening, so I came early to wait for you. Hey, how's your skill? In this era, everyone knew the importance of hiding their skills. Thus, Zheng Yi didn't directly ask Mo Shu what his skill was, but rather what it was for. Mo Shu paused for a moment before saying, not bad, but it won't be of much help to the college entrance examination. Oh, does that mean that it's not a combat skill? Out of 100 points, how many points will you give your own skill? I would give it 95 points. Zheng Yi was rather surprised. He knew Mo Shu well. Although Mo Shu usually joked around, he was very serious when it came to things. A score of 95 points was not low. It looked like Mo Shu's skill was pretty good. Zheng Yi was genuinely happy for Mo Shu. In reality, Mo Shu did not hide anything. The reason why he gave it a score of 95 instead of 100 was because there were too many strange things during the awakening process. Thus, he was unable to determine the strength of the skill. Oh right, wouldn't it be fine if he tried using God's Eye? He just didn't know if it would have any effect when he used it. With this thought in mind, Mo Shu grabbed Zheng Yi's arm and dragged him to the path beside the school. Hey, Mo Shu, what are you doing? Mo Shu looked at Zheng Yi seriously and said, I'm sorry. After that, Mo Shu used God's Eye on Zheng Yi and a message appeared in Mo Shu's mind. First skill. Purple Lightning. Effect. After being released, the entire body will be enveloped by purple lightning. This skill increases speed by 100%. When attacking, there will be a paralyzing effect. Duration. 2 minutes. Cooldown. 3 hours. He could really read other people's skills with so much detail. This was incredible. Mo Shu suppressed the excitement in his heart and raised his head to look at Zheng Yi. Was there anything strange about me just now? For example, did I emit any light? Zheng Yi said with a puzzled look, no. Why? Why are you asking such strange questions every now and then? Mo Shu said, all right, class is starting soon. Let's go back. Zheng Yi nodded and walked back. However, Mo Shu suddenly stopped after taking 2 steps, his eyes filled with shock. This was because when Mo Shu looked at the skill in his mind, the skill had changed. The name under the skill pattern was Descent of the Martial God. Had his skill changed? Why? Could it be Flip? Zheng Yi, who was walking in front, was a little angry when he saw Mo Shu stop in his tracks. Mo Shu, why are you acting so strange today? Let's go back to class. Oh, I'll be right there. When they returned to the classroom, since the college entrance examination was about to begin, they had to attend a self-study session in the morning. Then, they would go to the training grounds in the afternoon. Mo Shu sat in his seat in a daze as he carefully checked his skills. The passive skill did not change at all. Meanwhile, God's Eye was gone and had been replaced by Descent of the Martial God. After thinking about it, Mo Shu felt that there was a possibility that everything he saw when he awakened was real. He had indeed chosen 3 skills. He had 1 passive skill and 2 active skills. Under normal circumstances, only 1 active skill could be seen, and the effect of the passive skill was to switch between the 2 active skills. However, the trigger conditions were unknown, and the active skills could not be automatically switched. A passive skill? What exactly was a passive skill? Mo Shu suddenly got up and ran out of the classroom to the library. The third-year students could also choose to study in the library. However, the college entrance examination now emphasized on combat ability and the strength of their skills. Thus, there were typically not many people here. Throughout the entire morning, Mo Shu read through many books, but he couldn't find any records regarding passive skills. The only skills mentioned that were similar to his passive skill were the skills of beasts. Beasts did not have 4 skills like humans. They only had 1 skill, but it had a high growth rate. Ever since the meteorite landed in the human world, both humans and animals had mutated. Their physical abilities had increased significantly, and they had developed skills. In addition, the intelligence of animals had increased significantly, and they had been fighting with other creatures for more than 10 years. In the end, both parties signed an agreement to not interfere with each other. Humans lived in the center of the continent while animals lived in the periphery. Although there would be occasional conflicts, such conflicts were just isolated phenomena. There would not be large-scale wars. This was also the reason why humans were living rather comfortably. After a fruitless search, Mo Shu sat on the chair dejectedly. What should he do? Passive skills had never appeared before, so how could he trigger the flip skill again? Hello, student, I noticed that you have been reading many books here. Do you have any doubts? Mo Shu's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden elderly voice. He looked up and saw that it was the librarian who usually stayed in the library. Ah, hello. There are indeed some things that I can't figure out. The old man slowly sat down and took the book from Mo Shu's hands. He closed it and placed it under his palm. Tell me about it. I've been here for 10 years and am familiar with every individual here. Individual? Shouldn't they be all books? Mo Shu was puzzled, but he still asked his question. May I ask what types of skills there are? The old man slowly said, skills are divided into release-type skills, state-type skills, one-time skills and variant-type skills. Oh, what about the larger categories? Mo Shu obviously wouldn't directly ask if this man knew what a passive skill was. He could only ask bit by bit. There are attack-type skills, detection-type skills, confusion-type skills, and special-type skills. What about the even larger categories? There are skills that can grow, and skills that cannot grow. Even larger. What exactly do you want to ask? Mo Shu stood up and scratched his head. Nothing. I was just asking. I'm leaving. Sorry for disturbing you. I can read through you. Mo Shu didn't understand what the old man meant. He could only smile, nod, and retreat. Skills are divided into ordinary skills and innate skills. Innate skills are not only possessed by wild beasts, but also by some humans. For example, the royalty. Mo Shu, who was walking away, paused when he heard this. This old man was definitely not simple. At this thought, Mo Shu quickened his pace. Meanwhile, the old man watched as Mo Shu left, the corners of his lips curling up as if he had discovered something interesting. After Mo Shu came out of the library, he had a simple meal before heading to the training grounds. He wanted to test out the descent of the martial god skill when there were fewer people in the training grounds. The innate skill that the old man mentioned might be a passive skill, but how could he be a member of the royal family? If he couldn't figure it out, he might as well not think about it anymore. When he arrived at the training grounds, it was unknown if it was because the college entrance examination was approaching or if it was just a coincidence, but it was already crowded at noon. Since he was already here, Mo Shu could only carry out his normal training. Furthermore, Descent of the Martial God increased all his attributes by 100%. The higher his base attributes were, the stronger his abilities would be after he used his skill. When he arrived at the specially made treadmill, Mo Shu prepared to train his speed and endurance to the point of exhaustion as usual. Then, he would rest for a period of time before continuing to train his strength. Mo Shu had concluded that this method could allow him to stimulate his potential and break through his limits. However, before Mo Shu could start training, he saw Zheng Yi running over unhappily. I say, Mo Shu, aren't you too mean? Why did you run away after attending the self-study session? I've been looking everywhere for you but I couldn't find you. Mo Shu awkwardly said, I went to the library to look up some information and forgot to tell you. Zheng Yi put his hands on his waist and said, it's all right. I'm a magnanimous person. I forgive you. Bang! Before Zheng Yi could finish, there was a loud bang from the ceiling. There was a huge hole in the alloy ceiling of the training grounds. Then, a 3-meter-tall shadow fell from the sky along with the dust. As the dust settled, everyone present exclaimed, Heavens, is this a ferocious beast? This was indeed a ferocious beast, a huge creature similar to an eagle. It stood at the center of the training grounds, giving off an invisible pressure. Mo Shu frowned and said, this is a demonic eagle. It has 2 forms and hasn't entered combat mode. Run. Mo Shu's voice grew louder and louder. When he said the word, run, at the end, he practically roared. Upon hearing Mo Shu's warning, everyone reacted and immediately ran towards the door. Mo Shu had seen this species in a book before. Its name was the demonic eagle. It had a violent nature and its skill was transformation. Demonic eagles had 2 forms. The first form was its flight form, where its attack power was slightly lower. The other was the form after transformation. Its wings would be retracted back into its body and replaced by two strong front limbs. After transformation, the demonic eagle's strength would increase and it would become bloodthirsty. Even with Mo Shu's reminder, everyone still took too long to react. At this moment, the demonic eagle's black wings were gone and were replaced by a pair of blood-red forelimbs. The demonic eagle took a step forward and was as fast as lightning. In an instant, it arrived at the door and blocked everyone's path. Everyone panicked and looked at Mo Shu. However, they didn't expect Mo Shu to defeat the demonic eagle. They simply looked at Mo Shu as he had just recognized it. Mo Shu lowered his head slightly and threw his jacket to the ground. "Let's fight." Mo Shu wasn't trying to be a hero, nor was he going back on his word. He had just told everyone to run, and now he was telling them to fight. Just now, he wanted to take advantage of the fact that the demonic eagle had yet to enter its battle form to escape. However, the demonic eagle was already blocking the entrance. It seemed like it would not be able to get far away from there. If they tried to escape, it would only cause chaos and cause more damage. What they needed to do now was to hold the demonic eagle back. Such a huge commotion would definitely alert the teachers. They could only resolve this crisis when the teachers arrived. However, before Mo Shu could rush over to fight, the demonic eagle made its move. With a sweep of its huge arm, it sent the students who had reached the exit flying. In the end, the demonic eagle grabbed one of the girls and wanted to put her into its mouth. Mo Shu shouted, "Not good." Then, he simply activated Descent of the Martial God and charged forward at full speed. Mo Shu wasn't a saint, but if a classmate lost his life before his eyes and he didn't lend a helping hand, he would still feel bad. Originally, Mo Shu's physique was already astonishing. With the augmentation of his skill, he was as fast as lightning and instantly arrived in front of demonic eagle. What surprised Mo Shu was that even with his full strength, there were still two people ahead of him. One of them was Zheng Yi, who was surrounded by purple electric currents. The other was a young man that Mo Shu didn't recognize. He wore glasses and was very thin. He didn't look like someone who could burst out with such speed. Zheng Yi's fist was surrounded with purple lightning as he punched the arm of the demonic eagle, which was holding onto a student. It was obvious that demonic eagle's arm had slowed down. As for the bespectacled youth, he was even more exaggerated. The muscles all over his body instantly swelled up. At this moment, one could no longer tell that he was thin and weak. His muscles were even more exaggerated than those of a bodybuilder. Then, he jumped up high and grabbed onto the demonic eagle's wrist. With a bit of strength, he pulled the demonic eagle's entire arm to the ground. The demonic eagle was clearly surprised that a human could possess such power. However, it only paused for a moment before raising its arm. After exerting such strength, the bespectacled youth was clearly struggling. Meanwhile, Zheng Yi continued to strike the demonic eagle's arm to reduce the pressure on the bespectacled youth. However, the two of them only lasted for less than a second as the demonic eagle's strength was too great. The bespectacled youth was already lifted up. Then, the demonic eagle's other arm swung over, ready to deal the bespectacled youth a fatal blow. It was a matter of life and death. Zheng Yi panicked and threw another punch, shouting, "Mo Shu." Zheng Yi naturally saw Mo Shu rushing over and could only seek help from Mo Shu. In reality, Mo Shu had not been idle during this period of time. Instead, he had taken the opportunity when demonic eagle's attention was completely on Zheng Yi and the bespectacled youth to sneak around to demonic eagle's side. Just as demonic eagle lifted up the bespectacled youth, Mo Shu moved. He leapt in front of demonic eagle and punched out with both fists like a cannonball. His target was the demonic eagle's eyes. Before the demonic eagle could react, Mo Shu's two punches landed squarely on its eyes. Ow! The demonic eagle retracted its hands to protect its eyes. Only then did Zheng Yi, the bespectacled youth, and the female student who had just been caught escape. However, the demonic eagle was blocking the entrance and no one could escape. Mo Shu turned around and was shocked. The people behind him weren't idle. Instead, a few people with flying skills were helping to transport those with weaker combat abilities and those who had yet to reach the age of 18 and awaken their skills. Their exit was the hole that the demonic eagle had smashed into the roof of the training grounds. Those who could come here to train at this time were mostly those who had not awakened or felt that their skills were not ideal after their awakening. At this moment, they were abnormally united. Everyone knew that Mo Shu, Zheng Yi, and the bespectacled youth were the strongest people here. Whether or not they could escape today depended on these three people. Therefore, some people organized themselves into groups. One team went to help the three of them, while the other team quickly transported the people who did not have combat power. At this moment, Mo Shu also understood that the situation was more serious than he had imagined. Descent of the martial god could last for 3 minutes, while Zheng Yi's purple lightning could last for 2 minutes. Mo Shu did not know what the skill of the bespectacled young man was. It seemed like it was a buff or transformation skill. There should be a time limit to his skill as well. If the three strongest people wanted to stop the demonic eagle, they had to do the opposite of what they were doing now. They had to increase the tempo of their attacks and deal serious damage to the demonic eagle within the time limit. The two of you, attack the demonic eagle immediately and harass it as much as you can without getting hurt. When Zheng Yi and the bespectacled youth heard Mo Shu's words, they rushed forward without any hesitation. Mo Shu wanted to let the two of them stall the demonic eagle for a while as he looked for any weapons that could severely injure it. When Mo Shu saw how much time he had left, he was shocked again. Descent of the martial god had disappeared and God's eye appeared again. Could it be that the passive skill was a skill that automatically changed his active skill after he used his active skill? This thought flashed through his mind. Now was not the time to think about this. Mo Shu immediately turned around and activated his skill, God's Eye, on the demonic eagle. Talent skill. Enchantment. Skill effect. Retracts the wings from under one's armpits and regrows one's arms. Reduces speed by 50%, increases strength by 200%, and increases defense by 500%, with the exception of the wings under one's armpits. This skill was simply abnormal. Not only was it powerful, but it also did not have a cooldown time and could be used at will. Wait a minute, its defense had increased, except for the wing area under its armpits. This was equivalent to directly revealing the weakness of the demonic eagle. How awesome! Mo Shu couldn't help but sigh at how abnormal his skill was. He couldn't help but blurt out, how awesome! Zheng Yi, who was entangled with the demonic eagle, thought that Mo Shu was praising him when he heard this. He actually grinned widely at Mo Shu. Zheng Yi's expression seemed to say, "You think I'm awesome too, don't you?" Mo Shu was helpless. Zheng Yi's heart was too big. He could still show off in such a situation. However, Zheng Yi only showed off for a moment before the purple lightning on his body disappeared. After the skill duration was up, he entered a cooldown state and his combat power was greatly reduced. They could originally take the opportunity while the demonic eagle's vision had not recovered to barely deal with the demonic eagle. Now, all the pressure was on the bespectacled youth. Just as Mo Shu was about to rush forward to save Zheng Yi, the people supporting him from the side swarmed forward and charged towards the demonic eagle. Zheng Yi, who was unable to use his skill, also followed them. Meanwhile, Mo Shu made a prompt decision. He picked up 2 barbells and charged forward. Mo Shu and Zheng Yi had activated their skills together. Once Zheng Yi's skill duration was up, he would only have 1 minute to prove himself. Thus, he had to hurry. Zheng Yi, glasses, come here. Zheng Yi and the bespectacled youth came to Mo Shu's side. Then, Mo Shu whispered to them. Zheng Yi did not say a word. Meanwhile, the bespectacled youth said, "It's feasible, but are you confident that all of your moves will be accurate?" Mo Shu nodded seriously and said, "Yes, there's no time. Let's go." The three of them ran side by side towards the demonic eagle. When they were nearby, Zheng Yi suddenly sped up and squatted down in front of Mo Shu. Mo Shu's foot landed on Zheng Yi's back. It was unclear whether it was due to the strength of the kick or because Zheng Yi was exerting strength, but a loud shout resounded throughout the entire venue. "Ah! Go! Mo Shu!" Zheng Yi used his strength to push Mo Shu off the ground. Mo Shu also used his strength and managed to jump over the demonic eagle's head. The demonic eagle naturally wouldn't let Mo Shu off. It raised its hands above its head, preparing to slap Mo Shu to death. However, Mo Shu seemed to have expected this. He held the barbells in his hand and looked at the demonic eagle quietly. The demonic eagle's palm was about to close, and Mo Shu's skill was about to reach its time limit. Suddenly, a huge palm appeared above Mo Shu. With a full force push from the palm, Mo Shu bounced off the demonic eagle's back like a cannonball. The one who had launched this attack was the bespectacled youth. The demonic eagle's hands landed on the space between Mo Shu and the demonic eagle, missing its target. At this moment, Mo Shu was falling rapidly with his back facing the demonic eagle. He was about to reach the time limit of his skill. 5, 4, 3, peefed. Mo Shu stabbed the two barbells into demonic eagle's armpits. Mo Shu ran and jumped over the demonic eagle's head. Then, the bespectacled man used his palm to change Mo Shu's path. In the end, Mo Shu stabbed the demonic eagle's vital points. The entire process occurred in one smooth action. At this moment, Mo Shu's movements were extremely strange. With his back facing the demonic eagle, he held two barbells and stabbed them into the demonic eagle's body. His entire body seemed to be performing some kind of gymnastics. The demonic eagle sat down on its hind claws, unable to resist anymore. They had succeeded. He did not have absolute confidence in any of the steps just now. This was a complete gamble. Fortunately, they had won. Mo Shu could sense that the demonic eagle had lost its ability to fight, but he still held onto the metal rod and hung it on its back. He let out a long sigh and said, We've succeeded." An old man had appeared at the corner of the training grounds. If Mo Shu saw him, he would definitely be surprised. This was because this old man was the librarian. The old man looked at Mo Shu as if he had seen a treasure. He muttered to himself, "What have I discovered?" Shortly after the dust settled, the teachers of the school arrived at the scene. Mo Shu's form teacher, Gao Quan, was also the first batch of people to arrive. When he found out what had happened, he was extremely shocked. 3 students had actually managed to defeat an adult demonic eagle together. At this moment, Mo Shu and the other 2 were enjoying the warm applause from the other students. Mo Shu extended his right hand and said to the bespectacled youth, "Hello. My name is Mo Shu. This is Zheng Yi." At this moment, the bespectacled youth had already recovered his thin and frail figure. After adjusting his spectacles, he held Mo Shu's hand and said, "I'm Lu Qingyu. I've already heard of how powerful you are. From the looks of it, everyone's evaluation of you is still too low." Mo Shu was stunned for a moment. He had originally thought that Lu Qingyu was an introverted person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such skills without any fame. However, after hearing Lu Qingyu's generous and appropriate words, he realized that this person was definitely not simple. He was not famous only because he kept a low profile. Mo Shu wanted to chat more with Lu Qingyu, but Zheng Yi interrupted them. "What are the two of you talking about? There's only one word to summarize this battle. Impressive, haha. Mo Shu is really impressive. This battle was freaking enjoyable." Mo Shu sighed helplessly, knowing that any serious topic would be led astray by Zheng Yi. Lu Qingyu said cooperatively, "It was awesome, awesome." Upon seeing the teachers walk over, Lu Qingyu immediately clasped his hands and bade them farewell. "Goodbye, both of you. I'm in Year 3 Class 2. If you need any help, feel free to look for me. I don't like being in the limelight, so I'll take my leave first." Mo Shu was puzzled. Lu Qingyu was really strange. The group of teachers was led by Gao Quan. Mo Shu and Zheng Yi were both Gao Quan's students, so they were very familiar with each other. Although the teachers had many questions, they only asked a few simple questions before leaving. Their top priority now was to appease his classmates and investigate why demonic eagles suddenly appeared in school. After all, Shun City First High School was not located at the edge of the human residential area, and it was rare for wild beasts to appear here. For it to appear in the campus, things were definitely not that simple. Mo Shu and Zheng Yi returned to their respective homes. After this battle, they were exhausted. Actual combat and training were completely different, especially this type of extremely tense battle that expended even more stamina. The entire process took less than 3 minutes, but to Mo Shu, it was even more tiring than training for an entire afternoon. When Mo Shu returned home and realized that his mother was still not around, he went straight to her room to lie down. When he looked at his skill, it had indeed become the descent of the martial god skill again. However, it was still on cooldown and couldn't be used. Unknowingly, Mo Shu fell asleep. When he woke up again, he was woken up by his mother. "Little Shu, get up and eat. It's your birthday today. I've stewed your favorite mountain chicken." Following his mother to the dining table, he looked at the 4 dishes and soup on the table. Mo Shu was somewhat moved. In this era, since one's birthday and awakening were on the same day, the meaning of birthdays had already faded. Ordinary families would first take a look at the skills their children had awakened. If the skills were good, they would invite their relatives and friends to celebrate. However, if the awakened skill was not ideal, some parents might comfort their children, but most parents would be unhappy and even give their children a stern look, let alone celebrate. The parents could not be completely blamed for this. It was caused by the environment. After all, skills were too important to a person. However, Li Yuan was different. She would meticulously celebrate every birthday for Mo Shu. Furthermore, she didn't care much about his skills. It was just like when she had seen Mo Shu awaken in the morning. She had only asked him a simple question, but Mo Shu had simply replied that his skill was not bad. After that, his mother never mentioned anything about his awakening or his skills. Perhaps this was his mother's love and trust for him. Mo Shu lowered his head and ate. He didn't say anything about what had happened today, afraid that his mother would be worried. This was also Mo Shu's old problem. He always reported good news without any bad news. "Mom, I'm going to Yanjing University. When that time comes, don't work here anymore. Come with me to Yanjing." Her mother picked up a piece of chicken and placed it in Mo Shu's bowl. She smiled and said, "I'm getting old and don't want to be a burden anymore. Go and chase after your goal. I won't hold you back." "Mom, I don't want you to stay here alone. You've taken care of me for 18 years. I'll take care of you when I get into university." Li Yuan knocked Mo Shu's head with her chopsticks. This was a common action when he was young, but it had been many years since she had beaten Mo Shu like this. "This world isn't as simple as you think it is. When I was young, I asked you if you wanted to be successful or stay here with your mother for the rest of your life. At that time, your answer had already determined my answer today. Mom, don't say anything else. Just come back and visit Mom when you have the chance." Mo Shu looked at his mother's determined face and didn't say another word. He clenched his fists tightly. He would never let his mother suffer again. Never. After dinner, Mo Shu went out to a desolate mountain near his home. Mo Shu had basically understood his own skills, so he was here to verify his ideas. After looking around to make sure that there was no one around, he activated the Descent of the Martial God skill. This time, Mo Shu had been staring at his skill pattern. The moment he used Descent of the Martial God, the passive skill pattern changed for the first time and flashed. After that, the Descent of the Martial God skill pattern spun one round, and the entire pattern flipped around. The back of the pattern was the God's Eye skill. So that was how it was. Mo Shu finally understood that he indeed had 3 skills. God's Eye and Descent of the Martial God basically occupied the same skill position. The 2 skills were stuck together with their backs to each other. When one skill was released, it would trigger the passive skill flip, causing the entire skill to flip to the other skill on the back. Mo Shu let out a long sigh. There was no problem with his skills, nor was there any uncertainty. This way, Mo Shu, who had 2 active skills, was a level higher than his peers. The strength of his skills strengthened Mo Shu's determination to become stronger. At that moment, Descent of the Martial God was active. Thus, he started to fight. After a series of punches, Mo Shu felt extremely satisfied. On the surface, it seemed like Mo Shu's strength had increased by 100% after he activated his skill. In fact, it was not just that. As Descent of the Martial God provided an improvement in all attributes, including agility, strength, reaction speed, and so on, his overall strength had definitely increased by more than 100%. After that, Mo Shu ran at full speed through the forest to train his coordination in this state. Increasing his attributes was one thing, but whether it could be fully utilized was another. Only when Mo Shu completely adapted to this amplified state could he unleash the full power of Descent of the Martial God. This was just like the battle this afternoon, where Mo Shu and Zheng Yi simultaneously activated their skills and charged towards the demonic eagle. Zheng Yi's skill only increased his speed by 100%, while Mo Shu's skill increased all of his attributes by 100%. Logically speaking, Mo Shu should have been faster, but Zheng Yi had reached the demonic eagle before Mo Shu. This was because this was the first time Mo Shu had used his skill, and he wasn't familiar enough with it. Thus, he wasn't able to unleash its full power. On the other hand, Zheng Yi's understanding and proficiency in his skills far exceeded Mo Shu's. The next morning, Mo Shu sat in his seat and listened to Zheng Yi brag. The entire class surrounded the two of them and asked them about yesterday's incident. "Brother Zheng, I heard that you guys defeated an adult beast yesterday?" Zheng Yi sat at the table with his chin high. "Of course. Didn't you see how strong your brother Zheng and brother Mo were? We easily beat up the demonic eagle and made it kneel and beg for mercy." Mo Shu covered his head and didn't want to continue listening. How was it easy? Zheng Yi had reached the time limit of his skill yesterday. If not for everyone's support, he might still be lying in the hospital. Zheng Yi's speech became more and more intense. It could be said that he had been bragging from the beginning to the end. He said that he had a plan the moment the demonic eagle appeared, and that he knew what the demonic eagle's next move would be the moment it appeared. Initially, Mo Shu had wanted to ignore him, but he couldn't stop this fellow from patting Mo Shu and saying, "Am I right, Mo Shu?" Mo Shu could only brace himself and reply, "Yes, yes, yes, you're right." This passionate speech ended with their form teacher Gao Quan entering the classroom. Just like before, Gao Quan said some words of encouragement to everyone before letting them go for self-study. Before he left, he even called Mo Shu and Zheng Yi. Zheng Yi's attitude after being called out was as though he was saying, "Look, everything I said is true. Even the teachers have to look for me to understand the situation." The two of them followed Gao Quan to his office. After Gao Quan sat down, he pointed to the seats behind them and said, "Have a seat. I called you guys here today to tell you guys that we've been investigating for the entire night without any progress. We can't confirm the origin of the demonic eagle." Mo Shu nodded. He and Zheng Yi were involved in this matter, so the school had to tell them the truth. Also, the school unanimously decided to praise both of you in front of the whole school. They're also trying their best to help you earn extra points for your college entrance examination. At the mention of bonus points for the college entrance examination, Mo Shu and Zheng Yi's eyes lit up. Zheng Yi couldn't help but ask, "Teacher, how many points can you give us?" Gao Quan shook his head and said, "I'm not sure yet, but since I've already told you about it, you don't have to worry." Mo Shu was also a little excited. He had originally thought that it was just an accident, and they would at most be praised by the entire school. He hadn't expected that there would be such a thing as bonus points for the college entrance examination. Gao Quan continued, "Also, if there's any progress in the investigation of the demonic eagle incident, I'll let you know." The two of them said simultaneously, "Thank you, teacher." Gao Quan waved his hand and said, "You don't have to thank me. The two of you fought for all of this. Zheng Yi, you can go back first. Mo Shu, stay behind." Both of them stood up at the same time. When they heard Gao Quan asking Mo Shu to stay, he sat back down. Mo Shu didn't understand what Gao Quan meant. Why did he want only Mo Shu to stay behind? After Zheng Yi left, Gao Quan's serious expression changed. Then, he said playfully, "Mo Shu, you're really something. I didn't expect to be able to come into contact with someone of Elder Tang's level." Mo Shu was confused. "Elder Tang?" Gao Quan leaned back in his chair and said, "All right, stop pretending. It was Elder Tang who asked me to talk to you. He even recommended that you join the cosmic tuition class. Why are you pretending?" Mo Shu was even more puzzled. What was going on? "Teacher Gao, did you find the wrong person? I don't know Elder Tang at all, and I've never heard of any cosmic tuition class. If this involves confidential information, I won't tell anyone." To Mo Shu, Gao Quan must have looked for the wrong person. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to not understand anything. Gao Quan fell silent after hearing what Mo Shu said, as if he was thinking about something. Teacher, can I leave now?" "Don't go. I didn't look for the wrong person. Since you don't know the details, let me give you an introduction." Mo Shu nodded. "It doesn't matter if you know Elder Tang or not. This chance to enter the cosmic tuition class is very rare. I know you must not have heard of the cosmic tuition class, but you must have heard of the Shadows." Mo Shu's eyes lit up. The Shadows were familiar to everyone. They were part of an organization that belonged to the Alliance but was not restricted by the Alliance. They were something many people yearned for. The shadows were like secret enforcers. Usually, they were free to choose whether they would accept missions or not. The shadows would only be gathered when the Alliance needed them to carry out some important missions. Even so, the shadows could refuse the missions. This was equivalent to having status and money, but they also had the freedom of time. As long as one did not want to, it was possible not to accept even a single mission. I know about the shadows. What does this tuition class have to do with the shadows? If you graduate from the cosmic tuition class, there is a high chance that you will directly become a shadow. Mo Shu was shocked. After all, the selection for shadows was very strict. Only those who entered university could register for the shadow selection. Furthermore, the minimum requirement to register was to have 2 skills. The cosmic tuition class sounded more like a special training camp before the college entrance examination. Teacher, I only have 1 skill. Can I really become shadow in advance? Gao Quan looked deeply at Mo Shu and said, sure, as long as you can graduate from the tuition class successfully. Understood. Are you going to participate? Yes. Although it was rather baffling, Mo Shu didn't want to let go of this opportunity. All right. Give a call to your family and let them know that you are attending the tuition class for 10 days, starting from tonight. In other words, you will be away until the day before the college entrance examination. Ah, is it so sudden? Even Mo Shu couldn't remain calm. Wasn't this too hasty? Was he going to leave today and only return the day before the college entrance examination? Is there a problem? No, but I have a question. What question? Who is Elder Tang? I don't know him. Why did he recommend that I attend the cosmic tuition class? After a moment of silence, Gao Quan said, since he doesn't want you to know, don't ask. You'll meet him sooner or later. I got it. I'll get going now. Okay, sure. By the way, you can't tell anyone about this, including your family. Tell everyone that you were sent to another city as an exchange student. Mo Shu increasingly felt that this cosmic tuition class was not simple. However, as his form teacher, Gao Quan had no need to lie to him. Understood. After returning to the classroom, it was lunchtime. Zheng Yi asked Mo Shu and Gao Quan what Gao Quan had told them. Mo Shu also told Zheng Yi what Gao Quan said about being an exchange student. Impressive, bro. This is the first time I've heard of an exchange student. Which city and school are you going to? Mo Shu gave Zheng Yi a knowing look and replied, don't you know which school I'm going to? Zheng Yi hesitated for a moment before saying, oh, yes, I know. Mo Shu had already taken a few steps away, but Zheng Yi was still muttering to himself. Which school is it? Mo Shu had said this on purpose. With Zheng Yi's personality, he would definitely pretend to know and only ask Mo Shu if he couldn't think of the answer in the future. What would Mo Shu do when Zheng Yi reacted? At that time, Mo Shu would have gone to the cosmic tuition class. As the training grounds were undergoing maintenance, there was no way to train in the afternoon, so Mo Shu could go home and pack his luggage. After splitting up with Zheng Yi, Mo Shu had just walked out of the school gates when he was stopped by a girl. Hello, Senior Mo. May I disturb you? Who are you? Ah. My name is Yi Qiner. You saved me yesterday. Thanks to you. I only suffered some light injuries. Mo Shu slapped his head. It turned out that she was the girl who was captured by the demonic eagle yesterday. It was no wonder that she looked familiar. Why are you looking for me? Yi Qiner placed her hands behind her back and lowered her head, not daring to look at Mo Shu. Seeing that Yi Qiner did not respond, Mo Shu asked again. May I know why you're looking for me? When Yi Qiner heard Mo Shu's words, she seemed to have been jolted awake. Her whole body trembled and she stretched out the hand behind her back. She was holding a paper bag in her hand, and she hurriedly threw it to Mo Shu. Thank you, Senior. This is for you. Then, she turned around and ran off. Mo Shu caught the bag that Yi Qiner had thrown over and smiled awkwardly. What was going on? Was he scary? Mo Shu shook his head as he watched Yi Qiner run away. On the other side, Yi Qiner ran behind a tree and hid. Breathing heavily, she used the tree to block her body and looked back. Then, she covered her face with her hands and squatted down, as if she was too ashamed to face anyone. Aiya, how embarrassing. Why am I being so shy when I'm just thanking him? When Mo Shu returned home, he cleaned up briefly and packed a few clothes to change into. He left a note for his mother, informing her that he would not return home for the time being. Telephone communication was already very convenient, but Mo Shu still liked to leave a note when communicating with his mother. Perhaps it was because writing it on paper was more realistic. In the evening, Mo Shu looked for Gao Quan. Then, Gao Quan drove Mo Shu out of the city. Mo Shu finally couldn't help but ask, "Teacher, where are we going? Why are we so far away? We're almost in no man's land." "Why? Are you afraid that I'll sell you away?" "No, no." Of course, Mo Shu wouldn't suspect anything. Not only did Gao Quan have a high status in the school, even if he wanted to sell his students, he would sell Zheng Yi, that young master. There was no need to sell a poor student like Mo Shu. The car traveled until it was completely dark. Mo Shu was a little hungry. He rummaged through his backpack, but only the paper bag Yi Qiner gave him seemed to contain food. He opened it and saw that it was indeed food. It was cookies and looked like it was made by Yi Qiner. He took out a piece and ate it. It tasted really good. Gao Quan saw Mo Shu eating cookies. No matter how he looked at it, the bag looked like it was given by a girl. "Oh, is that a gift from your girlfriend? I love to eat food that others have made for me." As he spoke, he grabbed a cookie and ate it. "This tastes pretty good. Which lady is this from?" In Mo Shu's memories, Gao Quan had always been a responsible form teacher. Thus, he didn't expect him to be so casual in private. "You're mistaken. The girl who I saved yesterday gave these cookies to me to thank me." "Was she Yi Qiner? She's a famous beauty. You're really lucky." Mo Shu almost choked on his words. This was not just casual, but also disrespectful. As Gao Quan teased him, the car finally stopped in front of a large courtyard. Mo Shu looked at the time. It was already 9 p.m., but this didn't look like a tuition class. Mo Shu followed Gao Quan into the courtyard. Two middle-aged men walked towards them. One of them said, "Is this the person recommended by Elder Tang?" Gao Quan replied unhappily, "Of course, I've already brought him here. How can he be a fake?" The two middle-aged men chatted with Gao Quan and arranged a room for Mo Shu. Even after entering the room and lying on the bed, Mo Shu was still in disbelief. Was this simple courtyard the cosmic tuition class that Gao Quan had mentioned? Was this the tuition class that would allow one to become a shadow after graduating? After a night of silence, Mo Shu woke up early the next morning to wash up. The water source was the underground water from the well. He looked more closely at the courtyard and found that there was something odd about it. There was a small circle of rooms with a large and empty field in the middle. The field in the middle was quite large, perhaps even larger than the school field. Before Mo Shu could finish washing up, a voice resounded throughout the courtyard. "Gather in 5 minutes." Mo Shu looked up and saw two middle-aged men in the middle of the courtyard. Then, he ran over without a word. He ran to the two of them and stood in front of them. It was too dark last night, so he couldn't see their faces clearly. Upon closer inspection, he realized that these two were clearly twins. They looked too similar. The only difference was that one wore glasses while the other did not. Then, two men ran out from the surrounding houses. One was fat and the other was thin. They looked quite comical when they ran together. The next person who came out shocked Mo Shu. She was a woman Mo Shu was very familiar with. She was Mu Qingyi. Why was she here? After standing in line, the two of them looked at each other and smiled. What a coincidence. The bespectacled middle-aged man said, "All right, everyone is here. No one is late. Mo Shu, step forward." Mo Shu took a step forward upon hearing this. "You were the first to arrive. From now on, you will be the leader of this team. If the team members make a mistake, you will be punished too." When Mo Shu heard the first half of the sentence, he thought that it was an important task, but when he heard the second half, his expression immediately changed. Why did it sound like he had to be punished for being the first to report? "Mo Shu, did you hear me?" Mo Shu quickly replied, "Yes, I got it." "All right, fall back in. Let me introduce myself. My name is Wang Yu. This is my brother, Wang Lei. If you can't differentiate between the two of us, remember that the one wearing glasses is the younger brother, Wang Yu." The four of them were still waiting for Wang Yu's next order. They did not expect Wang Yu to say something unexpected. "Okay, you are dismissed. Finish your breakfast before 8 a.m. and come to this classroom. The canteen is the room at the main entrance. After saying that, the two brothers returned to their room and left the four of them in the same spot. What kind of situation was this? One second, it was serious, as if they were going through military training, and the next, they were dismissed as if they were playing around. They didn't even have a morning exercise. Seeing that everyone was embarrassed, Mo Shu took the lead and said, "Everyone, let's introduce ourselves and get to know one another. I'll go first. My name is Mo Shu. I'm a student from Shun City First High School." After that, the others started to introduce themselves. The skinny guy, Yu Yuan, and the fatty, Lu Ziyang, were both from Shun City Glory High School. Mo Shu had long heard of Glory High School. It was the best elite school in the city. Anyone who could enter that school was not simple. After a deeper understanding of the situation, Mo Shu finally understood the nature of this cosmic tuition class. It wasn't a tuition class at all. It was more like a training camp. Lu Ziyang and Yu Yuan's families had arranged for them to come here to receive training and obtain the qualifications to become shadows. After breakfast, they split up. At this moment, Mu Qingyi secretly went to find Mo Shu. "Mo Shu, why are you here?" Mo Shu said, "I wanted to ask you, why are you here?" Mu Qingyi was a little happy to see Mo Shu. The previous gathering was organized by Mu Qingyi to bid farewell to her high school friends before going to the cosmic tuition class. At that time, Mo Shu did not go to the gathering, and Mu Qingyi was still a bit regretful. However, she did not expect to meet him again here. Mu Qingyi skipped over to Mo Shu and said, "I didn't expect to see you here. Who recommended that you come here?" Mo Shu said awkwardly, "I don't know either. I heard that it was Elder Tang?" Mu Qingyi widened her eyes and said, "Are you Elder Tang's disciple? You're too amazing." "No, actually, I don't know old Tang." "You don't know Elder Tang? That's impossible. With Elder Tang's status, he wouldn't recommend you if he didn't know you." "Oh right, he's usually in our school's library." Mo Shu came to a sudden realization. It turned out that Elder Tang was the old man in the library who gave him goosebumps. Thinking about the way that old man looked at him, he felt a little nervous. "So it's him. We've met before. Is he amazing?" "Of course, he has contributed greatly to the alliance, during the war." Mu Qingyi's words came to an abrupt halt. She covered her mouth with both hands and stared at Mo Shu with wide eyes. "I said something I couldn't say. It's okay. I won't tell anyone." "Swear it." "I promise I won't tell anyone." "Swear it." "I swear that I won't tell anyone that you, Mu Qingyi, told me about it." When Mo Shu found out that Elder Tang was the old man from the library, he felt like he had been tricked. After chatting for a while, the four students went to the so-called classroom and sat down. This was an extremely ordinary room. At the front of the room was a bed and a blackboard. Meanwhile, there were scattered chairs at the back of the classroom. The few of them quickly tidied up after entering the classroom and arranged the chairs so that the entire classroom did not look as messy. Just as Mo Shu was wondering how the teacher would teach with a bed in front of the classroom, Wang Yu strode into the classroom and sat on the bed. Then, he adjusted his glasses and said, "Not bad, everyone is here." Mo Shu was so shocked that he couldn't speak. From the name of the cosmic training class, to the classroom and the teacher, everything seemed very casual. Mo Shu felt that it was better to stay in school and study. Then, he looked at the other three people and saw that they were all looking at Wang Yu with respect. Wang Yu coughed and said, "Ahem, let me introduce you to the curriculum of the cosmic tuition class. There are 10 days of classes in total. They are divided into the theory classes that I will teach in the morning, and the combat classes that my brother, Wang Lei, will teach in the afternoon. First of all, what is taught in the tuition class might not be very useful for your college entrance examination. The main thing is to improve your combat ability. The theory class has nothing to do with the high school curriculum either. Do you have any questions? If not, I'll start teaching." Seeing that no one asked any questions, Wang Yu continued, "Okay, today we will talk about basic knowledge regarding skills." Mo Shu didn't understand. He had just said that he wasn't going to talk about high school knowledge. Why was he talking about the basic knowledge regarding skills? All of you know the randomness of skill awakening. In that case, do you know what is stable about skill awakening? Mo Shu shook his head, indicating that he wasn't sure. Meanwhile, the fatty Lu Ziyang said proudly, I know. Skills can be inherited. Wang Yu added, that's right. Skills do not appear randomly. They are inherited. In other words, your parents' skills are likely to be inherited by you. This is not the only thing that is stable about skills. Skills will also be limited to a general direction based on each person's physique. I call this the physique limit theory. Physiques are divided into many types. The broadest categories are the warrior physique, the assassin physique, the mage physique, and the assistant investigative physique. Of course, there are also some special categories, but they are relatively rare. For those who have a warrior physique, their awakened skills will mostly consist of basic offensive and defensive skills. For those with an assassin physique, they will mostly awaken agility type, concealment type, or high explosion type skills. As for those with a mage physique, their skills are more inclined towards elemental damage. And so on and so forth. Everyone has their own physique, and the choice of their skills is limited to this range. Mo Shu's expression was serious. This was not basic knowledge regarding skills. If this theory that he had never heard of before was true, it would cause a sensation among the people. However, why had he never heard of it? Thus, Mo Shu asked, Teacher, I have a question. Why haven't I heard of this theory before? Wang Yu adjusted his glasses and said, It's strange if you've heard it before, because I developed this theory myself. Mo Shu wasn't the only one who was stunned. When the others heard Wang Yu's words, they were all dumbfounded. Wasn't this too much of a joke? He just talked about the theory that he had come up himself just like that. The skinny Yu Yuan asked, Teacher, what is the accuracy of your theory? Wang Yu did not answer Yu Yuan's question. Instead, he said directly, Mo Shu has a warrior physique. Lu Ziyang has an assassin physique, and Yu Yuan has a mage physique. I can't determine Mu Qingyi's physique. Think about what I've said, okay? Everyone fell silent. Mo Shu focused his attention on his skill. The active skill was Descent of the Martial God. According to Wang Yu's theory, it was indeed suitable for someone with a warrior physique. Seeing that no one said anything, Wang Yu continued, Let me introduce myself again. I am an intelligence agent from the Shadow Headquarters. My first skill is X-ray vision. Don't misunderstand. This skill allows me to see your basic attributes. My second skill is integration. I can use this skill to integrate big data into categories. My third skill is rapid number analysis, while my fourth skill is confidentiality. I have a data-based physique, which means I'm an out-and-out knowledge worker. Many people know about my skills, so there's no need to keep them a secret. All my theories have some basis. Mo Shu was shocked. These skills weren't strong, but when combined together with Shadow's powerful intelligence system, they were simply too powerful. To exaggerate, the person who was lecturing him was Shadow's central computer. Mo Shu never thought that such a big shot would actually come to lecture him. He had even questioned Wang Yu just now. After that, Wang Yu talked about a lot of skill knowledge that Mo Shu had never heard of before. The four of them also picked up a piece of paper and a pen to record the information. Mo Shu once again looked forward to the cosmic tuition class. What Wang Yu said might not have any effect on the college entrance examination, but it was very important for his future development. If he used this knowledge well, it could change the outcome of a battle, or even the direction of a battle. The lecture lasted the entire morning. Mo Shu did not relax as he listened to Wang Yu and took notes. After the entire lesson, he felt extremely content. This was not just a lesson, neither did it simply deepen his understanding of skills. It was an improvement of his entire understanding of the world. Furthermore, this lesson, which was extremely important to Mo Shu, was taught by the teacher sitting on the bed in such an ordinary courtyard and a simple classroom. Perhaps it was because they had been taught differently since they were young, but Mu Qingyi and the other two did not have such deep feelings. They might have been influenced by their families since they were young. Thus, they more or less had some knowledge about skills. However, from a young age, all of Mo Shu's knowledge came from school textbooks, causing Mo Shu to reflect on Wang Yu's teachings all afternoon. There was a combat class in the afternoon. The four of them stood neatly in the middle of the courtyard. Wang Lei slowly walked towards them and said, We will start the combat class now. You must understand the importance of the combat class. In 10 days' time, there will be no test for the theory class, only actual combat. so all of you better keep your spirits up. Yes. The four of them shouted together. All right. Let's start the lesson now. Today's lesson content is to fight me. All of you, come at me together. Mo Shu and the others looked at each other. What was going on? Why was he so direct? Mo Shu asked, Teacher, aren't we going to jog to warm up? Wang Lei said unhappily, when you meet an enemy, will they give you time to warm up? Also, I'm not here to train your basic skills. Hurry up and start. The four of them had no choice but to brace themselves. Mo Shu was somewhat vexed. He didn't even know what his teammates' skills were like. How could he fight? As the team leader, Mo Shu could only take the initiative to attack. His entire body flashed with golden light as he activated Descent of the Martial God and punched Wang Lei's face. However, Wang Lei didn't even move. Instead, his entire body was instantly covered in flames. Even his face was covered in flames. Mo Shu's punch landed solidly on Wang Lei's face, but Wang Lei did not move at all. On the contrary, Mo Shu had to take 2 steps back before he could stabilize himself. Looking at the burn marks on his hands, he looked at Wang Lei in shock. Even when he used his skill, he could not break through Wang Lei's defense. How could they fight this battle? Mo Shu wasn't sure if Wang Yu would discover God's Eye, so he didn't dare to use it rashly. It was just like how his entire body would flash with a golden light when he activated Descent of the Martial God. If he could not see the effect of Wang Yu's skills when he activated God's Eyes, that meant that he had been exposed. Mu Qingyi and the other two saw that Mo Shu had no intention of continuing to fight after being defeated. Thus, they were all stunned on the spot, not knowing what to do. Currently, Wang Lei's entire body was engulfed in flames, making it impossible to see his expression clearly. However, his next action let everyone know that he was angry. With 2 large strides, Wang Lei passed by Mo Shu and arrived before the other 3 people. He punched the fatty Lu Ziyang. However, the moment his fist came into contact with Lu Ziyang's body, Lu Ziyang's entire body turned illusory. Wang Lei's punch actually missed. An afterimage of Lu Ziyang was left behind in his original spot, and he completely disappeared. Wang Lei immediately turned around and punched again. The next scene was rather strange. A black shadow appeared behind Wang Lei. Then, the black shadow gradually solidified. When the entire black shadow appeared, Wang Lei's punch landed on the figure. That was right. This figure was Lu Ziyang. The skill that Lu Ziyang used just now was similar to the flash. He left behind an afterimage in the distance and instantly appeared behind Wang Lei. However, he did not expect Wang Lei to see through him. The strength of this punch was not light, and it directly sent Lu Ziyang flying. Wang Lei did not stop. He delivered a kick towards Yu Yuan, who immediately retreated upon seeing this scene. Wang Lei chased after him, but when Wang Lei took a step forward, a circle appeared beneath his feet and a burst of light erupted. After that, Wang Lei stopped moving. Yu Yuan shouted, "Quick, attack now." When Mo Shu, Lu Ziyang, and Mu Qingyi heard this, they attacked together. Mo Shu was the closest to Wang Lei, and he directly punched Wang Lei's back with all his strength. Meanwhile, the fatty Li Ziyang was not slow either. He took out a dagger from somewhere and stabbed it at Wang Lei's right arm. Mu Qingyi stood where she was and threw out a flying dagger that headed straight for Wang Lei's face. Wang Lei was attacked from 3 sides. The 3 of them reacted extremely quickly and attacked in less than a second. Wang Lei only paused for a second. After regaining his mobility, he grabbed Lu Ziyang's wrist and threw him behind him, hitting Mo Shu. Then, his left hand went to grab Mu Qingyi's flying dagger. However, the dagger unexpectedly passed through Wang Lei's palm and headed straight for his face. Pa! The dagger hit Wang Lei but did not cause any damage. Like Mo Shu's attack at the start, it did not break Wang Lei's defense. After that, the 4 of them no longer had any strength to resist and were beaten up by Wang Lei. Other than Mu Qingyi, who was slightly better off, the other 3 could be said to be covered in injuries. Wang Lei retracted his skill and said, "You guys will have your second challenge in 3 hours." Even Mo Shu was starting to feel despair. How was he supposed to fight this person? He couldn't even break through his defense, but he had to challenge him a second time in 3 hours. Mo Shu could only gather them together to discuss their battle plan for the next challenge. In the battle just now, We didn't know each other's skills, so we were a little flustered. In order to better cooperate, we should first learn about each other's skills. I'll go first. My skill is called Descent of the Martial God. It can increase all of my attributes. Even if Mo Shu did not mention how much his attributes would increase after activating this skill, Mu Qingyi and the other two were still slightly surprised. They had never heard of a skill that could increase all attributes. Mu Qingyi was the second to speak. My technique is spatial folding, which can allow me to transport objects. The flying knife just now could pass through Teacher Wang Lei's palm because I actually used spatial folding. Unfortunately, my attack power is too weak, and I couldn't cause any harm to Teacher Wang Lei. Lu Ziyang continued, my skill is called afterimage. All of you have seen the effect. It leaves behind an afterimage and allows me to disappear. 1 second later, I will appear at any spot within a 1-meter radius from my original position. Yu Yuan said, my skill is 5 elements formation. Metal is used to strengthen my attacks, wood is used to stun, water is used to heal, fire is used to damage, and earth is used to strengthen my defense. I can set up a formation on any spot on the ground, but I cannot activate it. Instead, it will activate automatically after 2 seconds. I used the wood formation to temporarily control Teacher Wang Lei just now. No one hid the effects of their skill. There was no need to hide it either. After all, their skill would definitely be known in the future battles. What really needed to be hidden was the duration of the skill, its cooldown time, and other important information. This was because it was easy for others to exploit this information. Logically speaking, the skills of these few people were variable and they could formulate many strategies with them. However, under Wang Lei's absolute defense, no one had any good ideas. During the second challenge, no one had any fighting spirit. When they were faced with an undefeatable opponent, it was a hopeless situation. As a result, the challenge ended very quickly. The 4 of them were mostly harassing him. Mo Shu didn't even use any skills. In the end, the 4 of them were beaten up again and laid on the ground. Wang Lei's mood was dampened as he said, today's combat class is over. Tomorrow, you will continue challenging me. The 4 of them helped each other to sit up. Mo Shu and the others suspected that this combat class was not meant to train them. Instead, Wang Lei simply wanted to torture noobs like them. At night, after the 4 of them had their meal, Yu Yuan used the water formation in the 5 elements formation to heal everyone. After that, they went back to their own rooms to rest. After all, they had been beaten up for an entire afternoon and were all very tired. After returning to his room, Mo Shu began to summarize what he had learned today. At this moment, his phone rang. It was a message from Zheng Yi. Mo Shu, you're such a jerk. You told me that you were going to become an exchange student, but you didn't say that you would leave so soon. Which school did you go to? Mo Shu replied. There are only 10 days left until the college entrance examination. Of course I'll leave immediately as an exchange student. Oh, okay. Which school is it? It's a school you'd never think of. On the other side of the courtyard, a heated discussion was taking place in a room. Wang Lei said to an old man, Elder Tang, Mo Shu's skills are indeed rare. His skill might be able to improve all his attributes, but it's not enough for you to make an exception and send him to the cosmic tuition class. At this moment, Elder Tang was lying on his side on the bed and said angrily, What do you know? Let me tell you, this kid is not simple. Maybe he has more than one skill. Wang Yu, look at that kid's attributes today and see if there are any abnormalities. Wang Yu thought for a moment. Then, he pushed his glasses up and said, the basic attributes of his body are not bad. His skills belong to the warrior category. There are no abnormalities. From tomorrow onwards, I'll give you a mission. Activate your skills to observe Mo Shu throughout the day. The next morning, in the classroom. The main topic today is about upgrading skills. Before that, let's talk about what happened yesterday. Did you notice that Wang Lei asked you to rest for 3 hours before fighting again? The 4 of them nodded. In that case, how did Wang Lei determine that your skills could complete their cooldown in 3 hours? That was right. How did Wang Lei know that the cooldown time for all 4 skills was within 3 hours? The reason is very simple. According to big data analysis, unless the skill is some large-scale killing skill, the cooldown time will be within 3 hours. This is something that will be covered in university courses. You guys should understand it first. Let's get back to the main topic. There are two ways to upgrade your skills. One is to train, and the other is to eat. There are two ways to upgrade your skills. One is to train, and the other is to eat. Training refers to training your own skills. Meanwhile, eating refers to eating heavenly treasures. I shouldn't need to explain too much, as you should all know this. Let's talk about the importance of upgrading your skills and my personal understanding of the situation. Mo Shu understood that Wang Yu's personal understanding could basically be trusted. However, it was not publicly recognized and printed into textbooks. You fellows should have noticed by now. Yesterday, Wang Lei had only used one skill. However, when he fought against you all, it was basically a crushing defeat. That is because his skill level is far above yours. Mo Shu raised his hand and asked, "Teacher, I would like to ask, if the skill levels only differ by one level, will there be a huge difference in actual combat?" Wang Yu gestured for Mo Shu to put his hand down. There is a very large difference. If we ignore the increase in the strength of the skill, the difference of one level is very likely to reduce the cooldown time by half. Can you understand this concept? Mo Shu understood. In a life and death battle, the cooldown time was related to life and death. It was just like when he fought the demonic eagle previously. If his skill had entered its cooldown time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. In that case, what level is Teacher Wang Lei's skill at? Even if there's a difference, it can't be that big, right? After Lu Ziyang asked this question, he realized that he had been a little rude. Wang Yu didn't mind and replied, "His skill is at level 4. Let's move on. First, let's talk about training. This is very metaphysical. Some people use their skills every day for 8 or 10 years, but they might not even be able to level up by one level. Some people might level up their skills after using them a few times. I've concluded that training alone is useless. It's more important to understand your own skills. Then, let's talk about eating. After the beginning came into being, humans gained 4 skills, animals gained talent skills, and plants became heavenly treasures. As a result, almost all plants now have an effect, not to mention the herbs that have become priceless treasures. There are many types of herbs. Some of them can directly evolve skills. For example, the spirit ring that you are most familiar with can directly upgrade skills from level 1 to level 2. Mo Shu was no stranger to these things. There was a herb store in Shun City. He had once entered it and was shocked by the astronomical prices inside. His mother's monthly salary was 5,000 yuan, while an ordinary body-strengthening herb cost 50,000 yuan. This was almost his mother's annual salary. Hence, Mo Shu had never thought about herbs. He could only work harder than others in exchange for better physical fitness. During this lesson, Wang Yu explained a lot about his understanding of skill levels. This was the second time Mo Shu had attended Wang Yu's lesson, and he was still shocked and benefited greatly from it. At noon, the 4 of them quickly went to the field to discuss their strategy after lunch. This was because they would be beaten up again in the afternoon. Time flew by and it was already afternoon. Just like yesterday, Wang Lei walked leisurely to the front of the crowd. Before Wang Lei could finish speaking, Mo Shu had already attacked. His right arm swept out and struck Wang Lei's right arm. This time, Mo Shu did not use any skills. This was because after the first battle yesterday, his skill had been switched to God's Eye. In the second battle, he did not use any skills. Thus, if Mo Shu wanted to use Descent of the Martial God, he could only use God's Eye once to reverse his skills. He couldn't care too much about it now. He hadn't been discovered even after using God's Eye twice, so there shouldn't be any problems. The moment he hit Wang Lei, Mo Shu activated his skill, God's Eye. First skill. Inferno Armor, can be activated. Skill effect. Covers the user in flames. Increases defense by 300% and attack by 500%, additional burn effect. Duration. 30 minutes. Cooldown. 1 hour. He could only see one skill. However, it was impossible for Wang Lei to only have one skill. This meant that there was still room for Mo Shu to upgrade God's Eye. Currently, he could only see one skill. His passive skill, Flip, flashed and his active skill became Descent of the Martial God. Then, Mo Shu immediately used his skill. Another punch was thrown out. At this moment, Wang Lei reacted and immediately activated Inferno Armor. Mo Shu's punch landed on the flames, causing Wang Lei's feet to retreat slightly. This time, the way Wang Lei looked at Mo Shu changed. Mo Shu threw another punch at Wang Lei. Wang Lei did not take it head-on but dodged to the side. Mo Shu didn't have any secret moves. It was just that he didn't use his full strength when he saw Wang Lei covered in flames yesterday to prevent himself from getting injured. However, today, the first thing he did was to fight with all his might regardless of whether he was injured or not. While Mo Shu and Wang Lei were exchanging blows, the other three were not idle either. Mu Qingyi found a good angle to throw flying daggers. Although they could not break through Wang Lei's defense, they could at least cause some interference. Sure enough, as Mo Shu expected, Mu Qingyi's daggers only made Wang Lei dodge slightly. They did not have any substantial effect. At the same time, Lu Ziyang went behind Wang Lei and prepared to launch a sneak attack. Wang Lei swung his hand back and hit an afterimage. Lu Ziyang had activated his skill. Wang Lei thought that Lu Ziyang would appear beside him and attack him from both sides with Mo Shu. Thus, he held back when attacking Mo Shu. However, when Lu Ziyang appeared again, he was still behind Wang Lei. He only retreated by a meter. Only then did Wang Lei realize that he had been tricked. He immediately attacked Mo Shu. However, it was too late. A golden light flashed beneath Mo Shu's feet. Yu Yuan's metal array had already been activated, increasing Mo Shu's attack power. Mo Shu felt that his strength had increased by about 20%. This was an increase of 20% after using Descent of the Martial God. Thus, the increase was quite impressive. However, fighting against Wang Lei was still very strenuous. In terms of actual combat experience, there was still a huge gap between them, let alone the difference in strength. Mo Shu took a step back as Wang Lei took a step forward and stood at Mo Shu's original position. Then, something unexpected happened. Two beams of light shot out from beneath Wang Lei's feet. It was Yu Yuan's fire array and wood array. The fire array attacked Wang Lei first. This time, the attack only caused Wang Lei to pause for a moment, and did not cause any damage. However, the wood array that was triggered immediately caused Wang Lei to freeze in place. Mo Shu's legs bent, and he twisted his waist into a terrifying angle to accumulate power. Then, he punched out. The bow fist was the most powerful attack that Mo Shu knew. Whether or not they would succeed in this challenge depended on this move. Bang! This punch landed on Wang Lei's lower abdomen, causing him to take a step back, but it was only a single step. Then, Wang Lei stabilized his body. Even if the four of them rushed forward, they would not have the chance to fight back. The opportunity had already appeared, but they were still unable to defeat Wang Lei. The disparity between them was simply too great. After knocking all four of them to the ground, Wang Lei clapped his hands and said, "Not bad, not bad. You actually came up with such a feasible plan. You are still using Mo Shu as the main attacker. However, their teamwork is clearly better than yesterday." Mu Qingyi and Lu Ziyang's attacks were all fake. The goal was to let Yu Yuan enhance Mo Shu's strength and set up a trap for me. There was a very clever point. Yu Yuan placed 3 array formations under Mo Shu's feet consecutively. After he finished enhancing Mo Shu's strength, he triggered the other 2 array formations 1 second after the other, allowing me to step on them without any doubt. Not a bad strategy. Who designed the strategy? The other 3 looked at Mo Shu. Wang Lei said, "You're a pretty good leader." Mo Shu said directly, "Teacher, we still want to fight." We still want to fight. Not only did Mo Shu say this, but Mu Qingyi, Yu Yuan, and Lu Ziyang also looked at Wang Lei with battle intent in their eyes. Wang Lei smiled and said, "Not bad. The first lesson is over." Mo Shu and the others were puzzled. The first lesson was over? Wang Lei's voice sounded again. "The first lesson is to become unyielding. Yesterday, you gave up on the second challenge, but today, you took the initiative to challenge me. You are clearly facing an invincible enemy, but you made different choices. When facing enemies who are many times stronger than you, choosing to not give up is the first lesson. During the Great War, when humans faced the powerful beast emperors whose skills have no cooldown, they were even more desperate than you. However, that generation did not give up. In order to protect their home and family, they chose to fight. That battle caused rivers of blood to flow and corpses to cover the ground. That battle was the greatest calamity in human history. However, it was also the most glorious battle for mankind. That battle protected the homeland of mankind. There was hope left in that battle. Although I'm not your enemy, I want to teach you that when you have nowhere to retreat on the battlefield, you should bring out your fighting spirit. So what if the enemy is strong? When people stimulate their potential, it's enough to create miracles, right? Wang Lei's words made Mo Shu and the other three feel emotional. Although they hadn't personally witnessed that war, the only reason they could live peacefully now was because of that war. Thus, Mo Shu was no stranger to that war. Wang Lei was right. When facing an enemy, one had to maintain their fighting spirit. All right, we'll rest for the rest of the day. The individual battles will begin tomorrow. Mo Shu asked, "Teacher, what does the individual battle mean?" "That means that the four of you will fight each other in a one-on-one battle." Mo Shu and the others were stunned. Was there such a thing? After the combat class ended, Yu Yuan healed everyone and left. Tomorrow was the individual battle, so everyone had to be prepared. Mo Shu was no exception. After returning to his room, he organized his notes and analyzed how he should fight the others. After dinner, Mo Shu walked out of the courtyard alone and started punching a large rock. Having been here for 2 days without any basic training or boxing, Mo Shu felt that it was best not to fall behind. However, before he could finish his set of punches, he heard bell-like laughter behind him. He, Mo Shu, aren't you working too hard? Mo Shu turned around. Who else could it be but Mu Qingyi? Same to you. I'm just a poor kid who's trying very hard to make a name for myself. It's rare and precious for a young lady like you to work so hard. Upon hearing Mo Shu's words, Mu Qingyi suddenly lowered her head in sadness. Mo Shu did not know Mu Qingyi very well and had never seen her like this. When they were in school, both of them would train until the school closed. They would leave together many times, but they were not that close. The two of them simply walked together and greeted each other briefly. When they walked out of the school gate, Mu Qingyi would be picked up by the car that had been waiting at the gate for a long time. However, even so, Mu Qingyi was the girl Mo Shu had the closest relationship with in high school. Mu Qingyi did not speak, and Mo Shu did not know what to do. He did not know if he should say anything or leave her like this. Mu Qingyi jumped onto the big rock and sat on it without caring if the rock was dirty or not. The rock was rather tall. As a result, when Mu Qingyi sat on the edge of the rock, her feet did not touch the ground. Her feet swung in the air just like that. Then, she turned around and smiled brightly. "Shall we sit for a while?" Mo Shu was not infatuated, but he was still mesmerized by the elegant Mu Qingyi before him. "What's wrong? Is a man like you afraid of a little girl like me?" Mo Shu regained his senses and walked straight to Mu Qingyi's side to sit down. "Of course I'm afraid of you. Which man isn't afraid of a woman, let alone a beautiful woman like you?" Mu Qingyi giggled. "Ha ha ha, I didn't expect a blockhead like you to be so eloquent." Mo Shu smiled and looked ahead without saying anything. He was sitting under the moonlight, with a light breeze blowing through the air and a beauty beside him. Who wouldn't yearn for such a comfortable life? Just like that, the two of them sat there quietly, neither speaking nor appearing awkward. It was as if the two of them were supposed to be watching the night scenery. "It's very comfortable being with you." The two of them spoke at the same time and smiled at each other. Mu Qingyi brushed her hair that was blown down by the breeze and said, "I'm not trying hard because I want to, but it's because I don't want to go home." "Oh." Mo Shu acknowledged and did not say anything else. This was because Mo Shu knew that what Mu Qingyi needed the most right now was someone to listen to her. "My parents wanted me to learn all sorts of knowledge related to skills. They hired specialized teachers to teach me actual combat. They also wanted me to make friends with people that they wanted me to make friends with. Every day, I didn't have the time to think about certain things or do certain things. Oh. I'm under strict orders from them every day at school. I'm not allowed to make personal friends. I have to go home after school and engage in social engagement during meals. I don't have a minute that I can control." Oh. Slowly, I felt like I was no longer who I am. Everything about me has been arranged. Maybe that knowledge is important. Maybe I'll use what my teacher taught me in the future. Maybe the people I make friends with are amazing. But I want to be who I am. I want to make friends at school and go out for a meal after school. Oh. What I wanted was that simple, but I couldn't get it, so I started training hard. I didn't go home after school, and I trained until school closed because I felt that I could only break free of these when I was training alone. Only then could I think about some things quietly. Oh, I want to slow down, make life slow down, and enjoy every bit of it. Oh, Moshu. Yes, I'm listening. Do you think I'm wrong? Am I wrong in this powerful era? You can say that you're wrong. You can also say that this world is wrong. Then who do you think is wrong? This world is wrong. Mu Qingyi covered her mouth and laughed lightly. He. Then what should we do if this world is wrong? Mo Shu looked at Mu Qingyi seriously and said, then, we should change this world. Mu Qingyi was a little moved when she heard Mo Shu's words. She knew that what Mo Shu said was impossible, and she also knew that he was only saying this to comfort her. However, Mu Qingyi was still very grateful to Mo Shu. He had said the words in her heart for the first time. She had even obtained approval from him. Mu Qingyi leaned towards Mo Shu. Mo Shu, Mu Qingyi, you guys are here too. At some point in time, Lu Ziyang came to the courtyard and saw the two of them. Mu Qingyi had originally wanted to lean against Mo Shu's head, but she immediately pulled her body back. She sat up straight and lowered her head to wipe her tears. Mo Shu, it's getting late. Go back and rest. It's been a pleasant day. Thank you. Mo Shu jumped off the rock and said, I appreciate it too. Mu Qingyi was comforted, but so was Mo Shu. Mo Shu had been tense all these years, and he had never relaxed. Just now, he had felt an unprecedented sense of relief. The phrase, change the world, was not a joke. At that moment, Mo Shu really wanted to change the world. The two of them walked side by side. When they walked past Lu Ziyang, they pretended that he didn't exist and walked straight back to their room. Lu Ziyang scratched his head and muttered, what's wrong with these two people? Don't tell me that they're sleepwalking? In the teacher's room in the courtyard, Wang Yu frowned and said, Elder Tang, Mo Shu is indeed a little strange. Elder Tang, who was lying on the bed, immediately sat up when he heard this. Tell me, in class this morning, when I used my X-ray vision to observe Mo Shu, I discovered that his skill type was actually more of a detection type skill. However, when he fought with Wang Lei in the afternoon, I could clearly see that when Mo Shu used his skill, he was more of a warrior for a moment before returning to a detection type skill. Elder Tang stroked his beard as he lowered his head and said, interesting. Back in school, when I saw that he was familiar with the demonic eagle's weakness, I knew that he wasn't simple. He might have two skills. Wang Yu added, but this doesn't mean anything. My X-ray vision isn't that accurate when determining the type of a skill. When I look at Wang Lei, there are times when his skill seems like an assassin-type skill. Old Tang nodded and said, it's okay. 5 it a try tomorrow. You can say this tomorrow. The next morning. Today, I want to talk about the current state of humanity. You might want to ask, do we still need to talk about the current state of humanity? It's like this now, because your generation hasn't come into contact with the previous world. This continent used to be Asia. During the war, the 3 superpowers formed an alliance, which is the current human alliance. After the war, humans and wild beasts signed a contract to be exempted from war. Humans live in the central area of the continent, while wild beasts live on the periphery. The high-tech weapons used by humans have basically disappeared. The reason for their disappearance is that they have limited killing power against wild beasts, but they are very harmful to humans. Thus, they were sealed to prevent civil war from happening. Lu Ziyang asked, Teacher, I heard that we humans used to have a weapon called a nuclear bomb that could render an island lifeless. Is it useless against wild beasts? It works, but it does more harm than good. In the early days of the war, humans used nuclear bombs. However, damage would only be caused at the center of the explosion. Meanwhile, the radiation generated by the explosion would cause the beasts to evolve a second time. There's another reason, and that is riot. After the war, there were a lot of riots. In order to quell the riots, all weapons were banned. Mo Shu asked, Teacher, humans have better inland resources compared to the beasts. Why didn't we expand outwards all these years? Wang Yu replied, humans have abundant resources, but we are essentially sealed off. You may not know this, but there are a total of 5 continents on Earth. Before the war, the 5 continents were interconnected. But now, humans have not been able to leave the territory of the Alliance. There's another reason why I said that we have been sealed off. It's because there's no news. You might ask, everyone has a cell phone now, and there is also a lot of news on the internet. Why is there no news? This is because the news from the other 4 continents has been cut off. Thus, we have no way of knowing what is happening outside the territory of the Alliance. We don't even know if the other continents still exist. Mo Shu frowned and asked, "Teacher, can our cell phone signals be blocked? Also, I read that the aerospace industry was developing well before the war. Humans have many artificial satellites too. Can't we know what's happening outside?" Wang Yu smiled bitterly and said, "The strongest people on this planet are not humans or beasts, but the terrifying sea race." Mo Shu was familiar with the sea race. According to the textbooks, the origin of all the meteorites was in the hands of the sea race. A large part of the reason the beasts reconciled with this was because the sea race was too dangerous. Do you know how big the Pacific Ocean is? The 4 of them shook their heads. The Pacific Ocean occupies a third of the Earth. Furthermore, before the war, humans only explored less than 5% of the Pacific Ocean. At that point, we didn't know what kind of horrible creatures existed in the deep sea. Now, we're even more afraid to imagine how terrifying those deep-sea creatures would become after being exposed to radiation. The sea race destroyed our artificial satellites and blocked our communication signals with their ultrasonic waves. This is the tyrannical method of the sea race. Students, don't be deceived by the peace you see in front of you. This is the result of the hard work of our predecessors. Peace will not last forever. This world is too big, so big that we cannot imagine it. Mo Shu admired Wang Yu from the bottom of his heart. Every lesson provided him with a new understanding of the world. If his explanation of skills over the past 2 days could improve Mo Shu's understanding, then his explanation of the human situation today widened Mo Shu's horizons. There was very little to talk about today. There was only a bit of content, but there were many questions. The 4 of them kept asking Wang Yu to explain what the world was like. Mo Shu looked towards Mu Qingyi. Yesterday, he had told this woman that he wanted to change the world. Was he too naive? It was unknown when Mu Qingyi had looked towards Mo Shu as well. The corners of her lips curled up into a sweet smile. How wonderful was that? At this moment, Mo Shu actually felt that it wasn't impossible to change the world. This was for the sake of his family and friends, so that they could live a stable life, and for the sake of maintaining such a beautiful life. In the afternoon, in the courtyard, Wang Lei and Wang Yu took out 2 chairs and sat on them. Wang Yu said, "In the future, I will watch the battles every day. I will explain to you the rules of today's individual battle. You will split into 2 groups. Wang Lei will choose your groups for the individual battle. There is only one condition to decide victory: when either side loses consciousness or admits defeat." The corners of Mo Shu's mouth twitched. Wasn't this rule too simple and crude? There were no restrictions, and the conditions for victory were so cruel. Wang Lei looked at the 4 of them and said, "Next is the grouping. The first group will be Lu Ziyang against Yu Yuan, and the second group will be Mo Shu against Mu Qingyi." Mo Shu frowned. After making the calculations last night, he obtained the results. Mu Qingyi was the hardest to deal with. Mu Qingyi's attack power was insufficient, but that was when she was attacking Wang Lei. If she were to fight against Mo Shu and the other 2, the power of her flying daggers would not be small. Coupled with her ever-changing spatial folding technique, she was definitely the most difficult to deal with among them. First group, get ready. Mo Shu and Mu Qingyi retreated to the side to watch the battle. Then, Lu Ziyang and Yu Yuan entered the arena, and the 2 pulled away from each other. Get ready, begin. An array appeared beneath Yu Yuan's feet. The yellow color meant that it was an earth array. Yu Yuan first increased his own defense. Lu Ziyang said to Wang Lei and Wang Yu unhappily, "Teachers, he cheated. He released his skills before the competition started." Yu Yuan's skill would automatically activate 2 seconds after it was used. Everyone knew this. The fact that he had enhanced his attributes right after the start of the battle meant that Yu Yuan had released his skill in advance. Wang Yu shrugged and said, "Didn't you hear my rules? There are no restrictions. It doesn't matter even if he dug a trap last night." Lu Ziyang looked at the 2 teachers with his mouth agape. Yu Yuan would not let go of this opportunity. While Lu Ziyang's attention was not on him, he ran over and started a melee battle. Lu Ziyang saw that Yu Yuan not only acted shamelessly but also launched a sneak attack. He gritted his teeth in anger and dodged Yu Yuan's attack. Mo Shu had never understood how Lu Ziyang, who was so fat, had the physique of an assassin. Furthermore, judging from the usual battles, he wasn't slow either. He might even be faster than Mo Shu, when Mo Shu did not activate his skills. Melee combat wasn't their forte, but Lu Ziyang still had the advantage of speed. He struck Yu Yuan many times. However, with the support of the array, Yu Yuan did not suffer any serious injuries. Neither of them wanted to use their skills first. They both knew that whoever used their skills first would lose. Just like that, this battle became a protracted battle. Unknowingly, the two of them had been fighting for more than 20 minutes, but there was still no winner. In terms of endurance, Yu Yuan was better. After all, Lu Ziyang was too heavy. Slowly, Lu Ziyang stopped dodging and moving like he did in the beginning. Instead, his footsteps became slower and slower. In the end, he barely moved and relied on the flexibility of his hands to hold on. When Lu Ziyang stopped moving, Yu Yuan knew that his chance had come. Suddenly, an array appeared under Lu Ziyang's feet with a flash of fire. It was a fire array. The moment the fire array erupted, Lu Ziyang turned into a shadow and appeared on Yu Yuan's left in the next second. Lu Ziyang held a dagger and felt that victory was in sight. However, unexpectedly, 3 consecutive rays of light appeared under his feet. The first was the wood array, which controlled Lu Ziyang. The next 2 were fire arrays, which dealt 2 waves of damage to Lu Ziyang. Lu Ziyang was already exhausted. Thus, the damage from the 2 fire arrays caused him to lose his combat ability. Lu Ziyang simply laid on the ground and shouted, "I admit defeat." Wang Yu announced the results. Yu Yuan is the winner. Lu Ziyang forced himself to sit up and said, "I don't understand how you knew that I would appear there and set up the array beforehand." Yu Yuan said, "As an array master, I'm proficient in setting up traps. You didn't have any stamina then. When I released the fire array, you would definitely use your skill. The key is where you will appear again after using the skill. If your stamina is insufficient, you will definitely not let go of the opportunity after using the skill. There are 3 places you can go, namely behind me and on both sides of me. However, you knew that I would be most wary of my back, while my right is where my dominant hand is. Thus, I gambled that you would appear on my left. 1 second after I placed the first fire array, you appeared. At that time, I set up 3 array formations on my left in succession." Lu Ziyang pouted and said, "How FC King's sinister. He's even more sinister than an assassin like me." Yu Yuan's skill was more suitable in a team setting. He didn't have any advantage in the individual battle, but actually used schemes to win. Mo Shu couldn't help but take another look at Yu Yuan. In the previous battle with Wang Lei, it had always been Mo Shu who had arranged the battle tactics. He didn't expect Yu Yuan to have such strong analytical abilities. Although Mo Shu did not know how many times Yu Yuan could set up the array, he guessed that there was a limit to how many times he could set it up. In reality, after Yu Yuan activated his skill, no matter what kind of array he used, he could only set up 5 arrays before entering a state of cooldown. Although Lu Ziyang did not say it explicitly, everyone could tell that Lu Ziyang's speed would increase after he released his afterimage. Therefore, Yu Yuan could only gamble this time. While everyone was still reminiscing about this battle, Wang Yu had already announced the next battle. Mo Shu and Mu Qingyi arrived at the scene. At this moment, Mo Shu's skill was still God's Eye. Thus, he immediately used it on Mu Qingyi. First skill. Spatial folding. Skill effect. 1. Flash. Affects the user. Allows the user to teleport. 2. Object control. Affects objects. Can cause objects to move twice in 3 seconds. Cooldown. 5 seconds. When object control is activated, the second movement of an object will not be subject to cooldown. For the first time, Mo Shu had doubts about God's Eye. It was already terrifying enough that she could teleport, but the cooldown time was only 5 seconds. In other words, if Mo Shao wanted to win, he could only dodge Mu Qingyi's 2 teleporting daggers and then defeat her within 5 seconds. Get ready. Begin. Mo Shu did not hesitate and instantly activated Descent of the Martial God. Then, he closed the distance between him and Mu Qingyi at full speed. Mo Shu understood that Mu Qingyi used long-range attacks. Thus, the shorter the distance between the two, the greater his chance of victory. Mu Qingyi stood where she was. She took out a flying dagger from her waist with her right hand and threw it out lightly. The moment the flying dagger left her hand, it burst through the air at a shocking speed. Mo Shu knew that the flying dagger was definitely not as simple as it seemed. Mu Qingyi must have used some sort of special method to exert force when she was throwing the dagger. The dagger looked very light, but in reality, it was moving very quickly. The flying dagger headed straight for Mo Shu's forehead. Mo Shu originally did not want to dodge, but Mu Qingyi would definitely change the direction of the flying dagger. However, as the flying dagger approached him, Mo Shu had no choice but to slow down and dodge. As Mo Shu slowed down, the flying dagger disappeared. Mo Shu didn't dare to advance rashly and could only search for the flying dagger. Then, Mo Shu turned around and realized that the flying dagger was flying towards him from behind. Mo Shu frowned. Why did she move the flying dagger so far away? She should have let the flying dagger appear closer to him so that he would be caught off guard. Mo Shu stared at the flying dagger. When the flying dagger approached him, he dodged to the side and prepared to grab it with his hands. However, the flying dagger disappeared once again. This time, it only moved a short distance away from its original position and appeared right in front of Mo Shu. Mo Shu couldn't dodge in time and could only lie down, barely dodging the attack. At this moment, Mo Shu was lying on the ground, looking extremely pathetic. Mu Qingyi's skill was too troublesome. If Mo Shu did not know her skill, he might have already been injured. Mo Shu, who stood up, suddenly thought of something and looked towards Mu Qingyi. Mo Shu thought to himself, "Oh no, I've been tricked." When Mu Qingyi activated object control and used it for the first time, the skill would enter a cooldown period. At this point, more than 5 seconds had passed. This meant that her skill had been refreshed and could be used again. So that was the case. Mo Shu was enlightened. She had moved the flying dagger further away just now to buy more time to activate the second displacement. Before Mo Shu could prepare himself, Mu Qingyi threw out a second flying dagger. Mo Shu already knew Mu Qingyi's strategy. By utilizing the 3-second interval between the two displacements, he could almost use his skills indefinitely. Mo Shu would no longer give Mu Qingyi the chance to exhaust him and stall for time. Ignoring the incoming flying daggers, he directly ran towards Mu Qingyi. This time, when the flying dagger approached Mo Shu did not slow down. He only tilted his head and the flying dagger went right past his face. Mo Shu silently counted down in his heart as the flying dagger disappeared and began to move. He started to calculate the cooldown time for Mu Qingyi's skill. 5. This time, the flying dagger appeared behind Mo Shu, but it wasn't that far away. It was just a short distance away. Mo Shu glanced back and continued accelerating, preparing to race against the flying dagger. 4. Mo Shu was not as fast as the flying dagger. The flying dagger approached him. Then, Mo Shu did something that no one expected. He quickly rolled on the ground to reduce his speed as much as possible while dodging the flying dagger. 3. The flying dagger disappeared once more and moved again. Right now, Mo Shu was only a step away from Mu Qingyi. Mu Qingyi was currently controlling the flying dagger to perform a second displacement. Thus, she was unable to divert her attention to dodge. 2. Mu Qingyi was within reach, but at that moment, the flying dagger had also appeared in front of Mo Shu's chest. In Mu Qingyi's opinion, it did not matter even if she could not avoid Mo Shu's attack. After all, this time, the flying dagger was aimed at Mo Shu's heart. Thus, Mo Shu would definitely dodge it. 1. As the flying knife flew past, Mo Shu's fist flew towards Mu Qingyi and stopped a centimeter away from her face. The wind from his fist blew Mu Qingyi's hair away. After a second of silence, Mu Qingyi said, "I lost." Mo Shu had indeed dodged the flying dagger, but he had dodged it in a very strange manner. He crossed his legs and his entire body was tilted sideways, like a crab. The flying dagger brushed past Mo Shu's chest and cut open his clothes. Mo Shu smiled and said, "You held back. Otherwise, the outcome would have been hard to predict. Mu Qingyi had indeed held back during the last displacement, giving Mo Shu time to dodge. Mo Shu knew that even if he did not hold back, he would still win. However, he would be severely injured. Off the battlefield, Wang Lei and Wang Yu looked at each other in shock. How did he manage to dodge the two extreme attacks? How did he manage to move sideways like a crab? This was unbelievable. Right now, both of them only had one thought in their minds. Mo Shu was a natural warrior. This battle was deliberately arranged by Wang Lei and Wang Yi. After all, Mu Qingyi and Mo Shu were the closest in terms of their individual strength. Mu Qingyi would slightly restrain Mo Shu, who did not have any long-range attacks. According to their deductions, Mu Qingyi would win with a slight advantage. However, the outcome of this battle wasn't just unexpected. During the battle, Mo Shu's decisiveness and extreme maneuvering were equally astonishing. For a moment, there was silence. Mo Shu wins. Today's combat class ends here. Wang Lei's voice broke the silence. Then, Mo Shu and the rest headed to their own rooms. Wang Lei said, "Wang Yu, what is your recent research project?" Wang Yu adjusted his glasses and stared intently at Mo Shu's back. "Recently, I've been researching the conditions and other patterns involved in the awakening of two skills." Their voices weren't soft, and Mo Shu heard their conversation clearly. When he heard about the other forms involved in the awakening of two skills, his heart tightened. Could it be that his possession of two skills had been discovered? After all, this was his greatest secret. Mo Shu suppressed his emotions and returned to his room. Wang Lei and Wang Lei also returned to their room. The moment they entered their room, Wang Yu said, "Elder Tang, Mo Shu did not react to what I said." Elder Tang stroked his beard and said, "I saw it. This child is not simple. Regardless of whether he has a second skill or not, he is a rare talent." At this moment, Wang Lei interjected, "Mo Shu's improvisation in the battle just now was too shocking. Even I wouldn't be able to react in that extreme situation." Elder Tang nodded and said, "Yes, Mo Shu's strength does not solely come from his hard work. He is a genius. He's born to be a warrior." Mo Shu, who had returned to his room, sat down on the bed in a panic. "Have I been discovered? Does God's eye really have a trigger effect that I don't know about?" After some serious thought, Mo Shu slowly calmed down. If he was really discovered, there was no need for Wang Yu to test him. He could simply talk to Mo Shu. His conversation with Wang Lei was either a coincidence or an attempt at probing. It was very likely that he was being probed. If anyone was probing him, then it must be Elder Tang. Elder Tang must have other motives for giving him such a great opportunity and bringing him to the cosmic tuition class for no reason. That's not right. If the Wang brothers said that it was arranged by Elder Tang, then Elder Tang is. Wang Lei, Wang Yu, and Elder Tang were talking when someone suddenly knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Wang Yu frowned. Who could it be at this time? "Who is it?" "I am Mo Shu, and I would like to ask you some questions. Is it convenient for you, teacher?" Wang Yu looked at Elder Tang, who did not say anything. Then, he stood up and walked out of the small door. Wang Yu opened the door and Mo Shu simply squeezed in. "Teacher, I have some questions that I can't figure out. I would like to ask you." Wang Yu gestured for Mo Shu to sit down before speaking any further. Mo Shu observed the room. It was very large and had 4 beds. There were also tables and chairs. Wang Yu also sat down and said, "If you have any questions, just ask." After Mo Shu sat down, he said respectfully, "Why is there a difference in the strength of people's skills? Previously, you said that everyone's skills have their uses. However, I've seen many useless skills, such as increasing your strength by 5% or understanding the language of pheasants." Wang Yu replied, "Not everyone can get into a university, but they can have strong abilities. Some people's skills are more suitable for production. It might be useless to increase their strength by 5% in battle, but it might be very useful in labor. It's precisely because of these ordinary and selfless people that we can have a better training environment." Mo Shu looked enlightened and said, "Teacher, I have other questions." After that, Mo Shu asked a bunch of irrelevant questions before pretending that he had benefited greatly. As soon as Mo Shu left, Elder Tang came in from the back door and sat at the seat Mo Shu had been sitting at. Ha ha ha, Mo Shu is interesting. I was the one probing him, but now he's probing us. Wang Yu nodded and said, Elder Tang, this child, Mo Shu, is not simple. He must have noticed something. The moment he entered, he observed the layout of the room. When he asked his questions just now, although he did it very discreetly, I could still tell that he was carefully observing every detail in the room. After asking a few questions, he would take a look at other locations. At the side, Wang Lei also said, I could see it too. He clearly saw through our attempt at probing and came specifically to find us. Not only did Mo Shu's actions not make Elder Tang angry, Elder Tang even smiled smugly. Ha ha ha, this little fellow is interesting. Since I've been discovered, I'll leave. Wang Yu asked, Elder Tang, do you need us to continue testing Mo Shu after you leave? There's no need. Your mission has changed. Not only must you not probe him, you must also help him protect his own secrets. Wang Lei and Wang Yu looked at each other. What was the meaning of this? Didn't Elder Tang get Mo Shu into the cosmic tuition class to find out Mo Shu's secret? Then, Elder Tang's next sentence completely shocked the two of them. You can say that Mo Shu is my disciple to outsiders. Ha ha ha, I finally have a successor. Mo Shu did not know what happened after that. After returning to his room, he felt that his guess was correct. Elder Tang was at the cosmic tuition class. Furthermore, he was staying in the teacher's room. Mo Shu had taken a closer look at the room earlier and found that there were only Wang Lei and Wang Yu in the room. However, there were obvious signs of habitation on 3 beds, which meant that one more person was staying there. Mo Shu was still preparing for the battle of wits and courage with Elder Tang in the future. Little did he know that Elder Tang had already left the cosmic tuition class. The next morning was also the 4th day since Mo Shu arrived. Just like the past few days, Wang Yu arrived at the classroom on time. The original plan was to give you a detailed explanation of wild beasts today, but after much consideration, I decided not to. You don't need this knowledge now, and telling you will only increase the pressure on you. Today's last lesson has no content. It's simply a question and answer session. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. As long as it's something that I know, I will tell you anything that I understand. Although there was no theory class today, the entire morning was not wasted. Everyone kept asking questions. In particular, Mo Shu had the most questions. Mo Shu knew that he had the least knowledge and didn't want to waste this opportunity. Therefore, he would ask any questions he had. After class, Mo Shu asked, Teacher, you said today is the last lesson, so what should we do in the morning after today? Wang Yu smiled mischievously and said, I told you on the first day that the primary task of the tuition class is to improve your combat ability. From tomorrow onwards, you will attend the combat class for the entire day. They were a little troubled. It was not that they did not want to take the combat class. After all, the combat class was very beneficial to everyone, but it also consumed a lot of energy. A few days ago, the combat class in the afternoon had made everyone tired. In the future, the combat class would last a whole day. It seemed like everyone would have a hard time. In the afternoon, the 4 of them stood together and waited for Wang Lei and Wang Yu's orders. The 2 of them sat on the chairs and whispered to each other. Lu Ziyang might not be convinced of his defeat yesterday. Thus, he volunteered to say, Teacher, who am I going to fight today? Wang Lei said unhappily, Who are you going to fight? Did I say that there will be individual battles today?